All right, are you guys ready for the Dominique Ropion deep dive? This is 100 plus fragrances in today's video. So YouTube allows 100 chapters total with one intro. So I have to make sure that I combine some of the fragrances in one group. But I've got over 100 fragrances from this perfumer. In fact, I had ordered a few more fragrances to feature here. Unfortunately, I didn't make it on time because I've been getting messages and comments asking about this video because I was hinting it, but I kind of went through my list because it takes a long time for me to compile a list, find the fragrances. They're all spread out. There's some vintage fragrances. In fact, one of the fragrances I couldn't find, and I know I have a bottle somewhere, so I'm going to talk about it. But there's over 100 fragrances here from master perfumer Dominique Ropion, starting from the 80s, mid 80s, all the way up to recently. And he's been going strong. You're going to find groups of fragrances from brands that he's done a lot of fragrances for. And then I've got, various fragrances here and there. They're not all loves. They're not all loves, I have to say. There's a lot of great ones. There's some disappointments. And we're going to go through a timeline. This is chronological. We're not going to go alphabetical. We're going to go chronological. And the earliest fragrance I have here for Dominique Ropion dates back to 1984. But throughout the 80s and into the 90s, there's not a lot of fragrances. But once the 2000s roll around, back-to-back launches, especially for Frederic Malle, then Juice Box, then YSL. We've got Paco Rabanne, you name it. So many different brands that Frederic Malle has created fragrances for. Before I get started with the list, what are your favorite Dominique Ropion fragrances? Which is the very first fragrance that you stumbled onto, that you fell in love with? You didn't know who the perfumer was. You looked it up. You said, Dominique Ropion, oh my God, I love this fragrance. I'm going to see what else he's done. Which is the first fragrance? For me, it's Portrait of a Lady. So that will always be my number one Dominique Ropion fragrance. But he's done quite a few fragrances here. So this is a deep dive video. As I said, if you love watching long format videos, please tune into my deep dive videos playlist. And there you can find a lot of different deep dives on various brands, perfumers, styles, notes, and so on. So let's get started with Dominique Ropion. Going to the house of Givenchy, YSATIS. Not in the original bottle. This is a bottle that Givenchy has put into like an older fragrances collection, and it goes into their kind of uniform bottles. This is YSATIS right here. So I've always known about this fragrance. I don't think my mom wore this one, but it's a tropical floral. And I recently purchased this for this specific video because I've always wanted it. I wish I had it in the original bottle, but this is the uniform bottle version. And Givenchy has a lot of fragrances in this collection. I have Sirius Rouge. I have the cologne or eau de cologne. I think I want to buy a few more to see what they're about. I was surprised that this one was kept the way it is. It does smell classic. It's a big bad floral. I think it's tuberose, but I also get a lot of ylang ylang, so it's a bit tropical. It's creamy, it's woody, it's fresh, but there's spices in there. And it's a big voluptuous kind of a floral fragrance. I think when you smell this and you say, okay, 1984, he created this fragrance, right? He must have been very, very young when he did this. And it's the precursor to a lot of other floral fragrances he's done, Carnal Flower, Alien, probably goes back to this right here. Although there's another fragrance that I'm going to talk to you about here from the same house that probably, we'll get to it in a minute. But YSATIS, actually, I think this formulation is pretty decent. Sure, when you smell it, you will be thinking, okay, that's a classic. That's something that somebody I knew that was much older than me when I was young used to wear, kind of a thing. But I think they've kept it pretty decent here. Unlike Sirius Rouge, which is an Annick Bernardo creation, which is in the same bottle, when I got that, I felt like it was really badly reformulated. This, on the other hand, still got some life to it, whereas like the Sirius Rouge was like so thin, I was disappointed. So that's YSATIS from Givenchy from 1984. So then we're going to the house of Ralph Lauren. This is Safari for the ladies. So this is a vintage bottle. And I kind of reported on this one recently. This and a bottle of Magie Noir. When I visit my mom, there's a seamstress that I go to. And next to the seamstress's store, there were 2 vintage perfumes. Like it was a, like a, what do you call it? Like old things that people sell, like a, not a Goodwill, but like a vintage shop of things people got rid of. And they had 2 bottles of perfume on the you know, on the front there, both of them vintage. One of them was a Magie Noir. The other one was this one. This is also another floral fragrance. The ladies edition of Safari. I wore the men's, came out like 2 years after. But I always loved the way this smelled on the ladies. This is a Cosmere bottle, as you can see on the bottom there. Well, I think Cosmere was connected to L'Oreal. I think it was, from what I read online. But a lot of folks say, go for the Cosmere. So this is not in the best condition, but I can see how it used to be a big, bad floral, really big, creamy flowers, and kind of green also, and also some spices and woods together. But sadly, I'm not getting too much out of it because, you know, it was sitting in the window. When I bought it, well, the weird thing was the store was never open. So I don't know why they have all this stuff, like old things inside the store, which probably they don't air condition. And so I called the number, nobody answered, but I spoke to the seamstress I go to, and she knows them, and she got them to get it for me for, I can't remember if it was $25 for the both, but I was very happy because I like collecting the vintage bottles and having this in the vintage form, even though the smell is kind of turned. Because on the skin, I think it'll develop a little bit more, because I wore this right after I got it. I sprayed it on skin. Even though you have a little bit of the bad stuff at the top, but eventually it's settled to something really nice. So yeah, this is the ladies. I think this is discontinued, isn't it? Safari for the ladies is discontinued, whereas I believe it still sells for the guys. Let me know if you remember. Up next, this is another Givenchy. This is AMARIGE. Now, this is a fragrance my mom did wear, and guess who got it for her? In the early 90s, I was taking photography classes, and one of them was a photography class where you're developing and printing film and, you know, pictures and all that kind of stuff. And it was working in the dark room, right? This woman, young woman, girl, she wore a perfume. And, you know, when you're like, the chemicals and the photo development smelled so strong, and then she just walks by you and leaves her trail, and you're like, what in the world is that intoxicating smell? So I asked her, I said, what are you wearing? That smells so good. I was probably like 22, maybe 23 years old, somewhere around there. And she told me it was AMARIGE. This is Givenchy AMARIGE. Didn't even know it was a Dominique Ropion creation. Didn't whatsoever. But it's tuberose bomb, but it's created in a way that the tuberose is there, but there's some things happening with it that kind of take away the rawness of the tuberose, even though you're left with it, but you still are reminded, I mean, you still have something pretty decent. And I think here, the reformulation is pretty decent as well, just like the YSATIS. It doesn't seem to be thinned out. And just as soon as I bought this and I smelled it, it was like, takes me back to that dark room that I was printing, you know, photos and developing film. And that girl walking past me back and forth, leaving her trail of AMARIGE. It's amazing to know that this is Dominique Ropion. Going through all the fragrances, his specialty is flowers, I think. And Portrait of a Lady is rose, but this is white floral note. I mean, this stuff is amazing. It's definitely a masterpiece, I think. This actually also kind of reminded me of Michael Kors for the ladies, the very first fragrance he launched. It was also a tuberose bomb, but that came out, what, like almost 10 years after this. I think it was much more modern for the time, but this is definitely a masterpiece. I'm glad it's still around. It's interesting also, it's not in the uniform bottle. It's still in its original bottle, although I think the bottle has changed throughout the years, but it's such a great scent there. Let me know if you've sampled AMARIGE, launched in 1991. I think it might have been around 92, maybe early 1993 was when I was taking that photo lab class, and that's when I first smelled it. So we're going to go forward to 1996. This is Kenzo's Jungle Elephant. So Dominique Ropion created the ladies. Olivier Cresp created the men's. This is 4 years after Olivier Cresp had created Angel, the blockbuster masterpiece that he did. This is, for me, I have a love-hate relationship with this. It's a bit medicinal and it's slightly weird smelling, but it's kind of fruity and spicy and woody. Almost like, is this really a woman's fragrance? Because it does, I mean, there's floral notes here, but unlike AMARIGE, which is like a total feminine fragrance, this one, to me, is more unisex. Also, a cute little top for the bottle, I think. With the elephant. I think there were a few versions of this. Does it, wait, before I talk about that, does it come off medicinal to you guys? It's a bit medicinal to me. But it's unique in a way that it's sort of addicting, but under there is something slightly medicinal, which I think is the combination of the notes. But I think there's fruits here, spices for sure, lots of woods, and some floral notes that are on the light side, I think. So that's Jungle Elephant, Le Elephant from 1996 by the House of Kenzo. And unfortunately, I can't find my bottle of Escada's Casual Friday, sadly. That launched in 1999. When I wore that fragrance around 2002, 2003, it was a fragrance that I actually traded with my cousin who was wearing it, and he didn't like it, and I loved it, and I gave him, I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was an extra bottle of Amen that I had. But now I don't have the fragrance off me to actually let you guys know about it. But Escada used to release some really awesome fragrances for the guys. Not much anymore, unfortunately. But Casual Friday was definitely a favorite of mine. That was launched in 1999. So this is the category or the group of fragrances I'm going to call the foundations from 1984 with the start of YSATIS to Escada's Casual Friday. Now we're going to the year 2000. This is the modernization era. And this is kind of before niche really took off. And here we've got Un Fleur de Cassis from Dominique Ropion for Frederic Malle. So, Un Fleur de Cassis is mimosa or cassie flower, which I think they're somewhat connected. This is also so vintage smelling. So, for me, this fragrance and also Le Parfum de Thérèse from Frederic Malle smells so vintage to me. This one smells like it was a formula that was done before, but it's powdery and also kind of fruity. Deep and rich, little almondy, yellow floral, fruity, but super powdery. Not one of my all-time favorites from the house, but it's definitely something that he did for Frederic Malle. In fact, that's probably his first Frederic Malle creation. And Frederic Malle, I think the first fragrances were created in 2000. So I believe the brand launched late 90s, 99 to 2000. And so he did his first fragrance in 2000. You know, I like the fragrance. I like mimosa. I like mimosa in fragrances. But if I was going to rank it, I wouldn't rank this really high. I don't hate it, but it's not one of my all-time favorites, if that makes sense. Up next is another Escada that I wore. Sentiment pour Homme, launched in 2002. This is created with Laurent Bruyere. You guys familiar with this perfumer? I don't know what has happened to this perfumer, but he did Scent Intense for Costume National. And we've got a lot of Costume National fragrances in this video because Dominique Ropion has done a lot of Costume National. This is created with Laurent Bruyere. This is a fragrance I wore. In fact, I really loved it. I bought it recently, and it's been like 3 or 4 years since I bought this particular bottle. And I thought at the time, man, the reformulation is so bad. But in the bottle, it's gotten quite nice. It's sort of a fruity, fresh, zesty, spicy, aromatic thing. It's gotten quite weak, but I do quite like this one. I wore it quite a bit in the early 2000s. Around the same time, I also wore Burberry London in a similar color bottle, but with a cloth on it, the spicy tobacco. But this one always is something that I remember. In fact, I have still a bottle of the aftershave that I got in a gift set of this when I first wore it in the early 2000s. But this is a more recent bottle that I have purchased. And this is Sentiment pour Homme by Escada. Lovely stuff. It is definitely much lighter now, but if you wore it, check it out. Buy it. Maybe you can store it because it's not that expensive. It's like $40, $50. And just keep it somewhere and then come back to it. It does age and it does smell great. Now, I don't know. This, like I said, this is a one that I bought like 4 years ago. I don't know how the reformulation is now currently. But let's go back to Frederic Malle from the year 2002. This is Vetiver Extraordinaire. So this is the second, or I think he's done a few Frederic Malles. No, I think this is the only one he did in 2002. This has pretty large following for the house, for Dominique Ropion. And I think if you've been a fan of Guerlain's Vetiver, this is definitely something you would graduate to. Something a bit more potent, more intense, raw, rooty, earthy, grassy, green, spicy, vetiver. It's very masculine. Vetiver to me is quite masculine. I think woods, aromatics, spices lean masculine. And that's definitely a great, example of vetiver. I've used quite a bit of it. So when I first got this, at the time I was like, I already have so many vetiver fragrances. I was also wearing a lot of Dior's vetiver in the Privé collection, which I really loved with the coffee note in it. I was a bit, like, oh, it's another vetiver, right? I've got so many of them. But it's grown on me more and more. I do enjoy it more and more because it's definitely a great representation for vetiver. Like, the star is the vetiver, and that's what you want. You definitely would like that. Okay, so next we've got, Cacharel, the brand I don't speak much about. This is AMOR. This is also co-created with Laurent Bruyere, who also, co-created with Escada Sentiment pour Homme. So Cacharel is a brand. I need to buy the original Cacharel men's fragrance. I've been wanting it, but this is AMOR with the rose. So obviously, it's going to be a rose-focused fragrance. But this is eau de toilette, so it's very light and fresh take on rose. I believe this is a really difficult to spray because it's got that thing on it. I believe Cacharel is under L'Oreal. Which brand isn't, by the way? Well, Frederic Malle isn't. Givenchy isn't. Kenzo isn't. It's a very light, fresh, spicy rose. The rose is not jammy, juicy. It's kind of dry. It's kind of simplistic, easy to wear. It's also very inexpensive. This is like $30 for 100 ml. But I don't know what year. Well, this came out in 2005, it says. 2003, actually. But I feel like it's very thin. I don't know how the Eau de Parfum version is, but I think it doesn't have substance. Like going from the Vetiver Extraordinaire to this, night and day different. But, you know, I think on skin, it develops a little bit, kind of comes through. I'm curious to try the Eau de Parfum to see it's a bit more lively. But this is a super thin offering. Let me know if you're a fan of AMOR from Cacharel, created with Laurent Bruyere. Up next, going back to Frederic Malle, it's Carnal Flower. As I've been saying in videos, I'm not really digging tuberose. It's the classic variety of tuberose that I'm having a bit of a challenging time with. And I really love classic fragrances. Something about the classic tuberose that's turning me off. But here, with the tuberose here, it's quite modern still for something that's like 21 years old. Still spicy, kind of green. It's got that eucalyptus. It's creamy, coconutty. It's a nice contrast with the creaminess of the tuberose. It's very fresh, but bright. And, you know, it's big. It's a big, bad white flower in your face, but nice contrast in it. It's a bit soapy as well. I think there might be some, you know, light citrus floral touches in there. But I think this is definitely one of the best tuberose fragrances on the market today, still today. It smells really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Great work by Dominique Ropion. It's got a huge following as well. And up next, going to the house of Mugler. See, he's doing a lot of floral fragrances. This is one that he's known for quite a bit, and we're doing back-to-back floral fragrances here. This is Mugler's Alien with Laurent Bruyere once again. This is a bottle that I've had for a while, and it's almost at the bottom. This is actually jasmine. But as I've mentioned in videos with this fragrance, there's something neon about this. It's like a nighttime kind of Blade Runner fragrance with white flowers. I don't know, neon lights. There's something electric, or what is it? Electrocution about this jasmine. It's futuristic. That's what it is. It's futuristic with kind of a Blade Runner futuristic neon thing happening. I don't know why I get that with this fragrance, but maybe the word alien does that somehow subconsciously. But I think he did a great job on this one as well. Now, I don't know much about Laurent Bruyere. As I said, I've been mentioning his name quite a bit here. And even though we haven't gotten to Costume National yet, he's done several Costume National fragrances on his own, like Scent Intense. And Dominique has done a lot of Costume National fragrances. But I wasn't aware that this was a co-creation, but I guess it is. But later on, all the different flankers, most of the flankers since this have been by Dominique Ropion alone. There is a flanker that I'm going to talk about from Alien that I absolutely love. It was with Fanny Ball of IFF. But I suppose, or I assume, that Dominique Ropion worked at IFF with Laurent Bruyere. Unless when he created these fragrances with Laurent Bruyere, he was working at a different firm. But I think he's been with IFF for quite a while. Anyway, Alien is quite good. I absolutely love it. For me, it's not as strong as Angel by Mugler, but I think Alien is quite a strong offering. It launched 13 years after Angel launched. All right, next, going to the house of Victor and Rolf. It's FLOWERBOMB. FLOWERBOMB. I did not know this freaking fragrance has been around for 20 years. I wasn't aware. And there are so many flankers of this one. But this fragrance originally was created by multiple perfumers. So it's not only Dominique Ropion, it's Carlos Benayem, Olivier Polge, Domitil Michelin Berthier, all from IFF. So I guess Olivier Polge worked at IFF before he went to Chanel. So, because Carlos has been at IFF for ages, Carlos Benayem. FLOWERBOMB, on the other hand, the original, is a powdery floral. Very feminine. Rose and other flowers come to mind here. It's definitely a bomb. But I would think this is an eau de toilette, I believe, right? Or is it an eau de parfum? It's an eau de parfum. It's acting pretty light compared to the Alien. It's acting on the lighter side, meaning it might not necessarily be light, but with the sprays of Alien, it was reaching a lot more. With this one, it's more like subdued, is what I'm trying to say. And I've smelled so many different flankers of this line, and I don't know when Viktor and Rolf went with L'Oreal, but they've really, like, so many flankers of Flower Bomb. I mean, Spice Bomb, also by the same brand, doesn't have as many flankers, but Flower Bomb, on the other hand, is like overdone with flankers. I think this is a pretty, like, entry-level floral fragrance for the ladies. I wouldn't say it's anything special. Maybe it was a little better with reformulations. It's gotten a bit light. It's been 20 years, going on 21. But what I'm smelling here on the strip, it's pretty decent. Flower Bomb. Why isn't there a label on it? I guess the label's right there, and that's their logo. It's funny. I wasn't too familiar with Viktor and Rolf. My first European trip to Europe was to go to France and also to the Netherlands, Amsterdam. And when I was in Amsterdam, I went to the Amsterdam dance event. I worked in the music business at the time. And also, I went to museums. And one of the museums I went to, the main museum there was an event with Viktor and Rolf. And they were doing like this interesting fashion show there. Because I don't think the brand does much in fashion anymore. But it was a very interesting experience to see this very, very like museum, like it was almost like a theatrical, dancey kind of fashion show with a lot of the clothing of Viktor and Rolf, and like a once in a lifetime experience to have been able to see that. So that was really cool. But I think at the time there was Antidote, or it was Antidote a little before Flower Bomb, because Antidote bombed. Like, it was not a successful fragrance for Viktor and Rolf, although I think it's quite good. But right after that is when, although I think by then Spice Bomb had already launched. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head, but it was a great experience to being able to see that very unique fashion show. Let's move on to the House of Lalique. Also from the same year, it's Le Parfum, which was also featured just a week ago in my 100 fragrances under $50 video. If you haven't caught that video, please go catch it, because this is a cheapie. It's a vanilla created by Dominique Ropion all by himself, not with like 10 other perfumers. But this is a bit green-leaning vanilla. It's sweet syrupy, but not super syrupy. It's powdery and spicy. It's a little woody as well. I wouldn't call it a super intense gourmand, but definitely like a woody, spicy, vanillic, powdery thing. It comes out very simplistic. And this is the first time I'm noticing that there's a face on the cap. I don't know if you can see that. So there's a little face there. But I kind of like the dangly, tassely thing. So this is Le Parfum, similar shape of a bottle of Encre Noire, obviously. So that is Lalique Le Parfum. But this fragrance, on my very first trip to Europe, same trip, in Paris, is when they had just launched L'Homme by YSL. At the time, it smelled much better. I think it's gotten so super thin right now. It's hardly much there. But this is also creation with multiple other perfumers. Launched in 2006, it's created with Anne Flippo, Juliette Caragazoglu, and Pierre Wargnai, a longtime perfumer who created two of my favorite fragrances. Boss Number 1, which is awesome, but my most favorite classic 80s fragrance, Drakkar Noir. So I guess this is probably one of his latest or last creations, because I haven't seen his name come up much more after YSL's L'Homme. But did you guys like this? Do you like it? I think it's a spicy kind of gingery freshy. It's changed throughout the years, I think. There was some more potency about it when I first smelled it. It's gotten quite light. This is a long-standing collection. I think L'Homme, the follow-up of that fragrance, which launched, I think, like 3 years after, which is, where is it? La Nuit de l'Homme, I think, is probably the better of the two. And I think between that one and this one, that one has stayed a bit truer to its smell. I recall this being a bit more zesty, and I think the zest has gone. It's gotten soft. I don't know. It was pretty popular for a while, but for me, between this one and the La Nuit, I much prefer the La Nuit. All right, next up, Calvin Klein's Euphoria. Once again, another co-creation with two other perfumers. It's launched in 2006 with Carlos Benaim and Loc Dong. This is Euphoria by Calvin Klein. Oh, I guess the name is right here. So hopefully you got to see that. All right, this fragrance, I never much had experience with it owning a bottle, but I knew a woman that wore it, and I always loved the way she smelled. I knew her very briefly, and I was working with her husband, who was web designer, web creator, and so we'd have meetings, and she'd always connect, and I could smell her fragrance, and we'd be like talking business, and I'm smelling her perfume. So I think it's a bit fruity, it's a bit spicy, and also very woody. I think it's pomegranates, because there's the zesty juiciness about this at the very top. There's a men's Euphoria as well, which I think my favorite men's Euphoria, I don't know who did it, is more of the amber Euphoria, but it's pretty decent. This is Eau de Parfum, I believe. Yeah, it's Eau de Parfum. It's the original. It does have a very 2000s kind of smell with fragrances. It's not super tired like a 90s fragrance, but it's also not very modern, if that makes sense. The bottle is quite original, very Calvin Klein, I think. So that is Calvin Klein Euphoria from 2006. Then it's a discontinued fragrance, I believe. I think this is discontinued. This is Code for Women from Armani. And this is the only one I have. It's an old vintage bottle. This is from 2006, and it's also with two other perfumers, this time with Carlos Benaim and Olivier Polge. This series is pretty powdery. There's a kind of a bright freshness like citruses, but it comes off quite powdery for me. I think my bottle might be a bit turned, sadly. But this bottle is a bottle that was part of that video I did with Dahlia. And it's the big storage unit haul, the auctioned fragrances haul. And I happen to have it, and thought I'd feature it here, something that Dominique Ropion had created with a few other perfumers. But that's Armani Code for the ladies. It's got like this lace treatment on the bottle. Kind of lace treatment, I think, right? I think it's pretty good. There's a soapiness about it, so there might be some citrus floral notes here. Pleasant. So that's Armani Code for the ladies. Now we've got Costume National Homme from 2009. They're starting off with the Costume National fragrances. So I think before this, Scent Intense by Costume National launched around, what, 2005 or 6? So those, as I was saying, are created by Laurent Briere. This is the first Dominique Ropion creation for Costume National. And I think it's definitely one of the most popular from the house. To me, it's spicy, it's woody, it's ambery. And I always mention this, there's cardamom here for sure, but I get the idea of tea and fruits, like dried fruits, tea, and it's woody. As I said, it's got an ambery quality, and of course it's got spices. Very classy masculine offering, but not super butch. You know, there's some things in here that kind of takes it towards the unisex direction. But it's definitely a really solid offering that Dominique Ropion did. Let me know if you're a fan. I'm hoping the brand comes to the States. I keep hoping. I love this brand. It's a brand that's connected to Juicebox. The founders of Juicebox founded the fragrances of Costume National, but before they did Juicebox. But Costume National isn't fashion house. I thought they had stopped creating fashions, but somebody recently said they still are making fashion. So I don't know what's going on with the clothing, but the brand is still releasing fragrances. And so I'm hoping they figure out a way to come back to the States since they have been absent for a while. I think the reason the brand folded from the States is because their biggest retailer was Barney's, and Barney's completely went out of business all over. So they kind of lost their retailer, their main retailer. So then we've got Yves Saint Laurent's La Nuit de la Homme with, oh, okay, I guess this was not the last fragrance Pierre Wergny did. Remember, Pierre Wergny is a perfumer that I admire. He did Boss No. 1 and also Drakkar Noir. So I guess he also did La Nuit de la Homme. I have to get a new bottle. Look at how much is in here. But this is the La Nuit de la Homme is with Anne Flippo and Pierre Wergny, according to my research. And also, if you like cardamom, this is definitely a great cardamom fragrance. The cardamom really comes alive. I first smelled this on my cousin, and he's a smoker, so I could smell cigarettes off of him, and it smelled so good. So if there's a smoky, I wonder how this would be with layered with acro, because it's smoky. That might come off really interesting. Because acro smoke does smell like cigarette smoke, but it's got sweet resins. So that might be a great combo. Because this is kind of thin. It's not super dense. But I really enjoy it. It's definitely pretty quality for a men's designer offering. It's fresh, it's spicy, it's woody, and not overwhelming. But pretty quality designer offering for the guys. YSL, La Nuit de la Homme. Very popular for a long time. And then we're going to end the modernization era. This is the modernization era of a group of fragrances. With the last fragrance in 2009, it's Geranium Pour Monsieur. So I've mentioned so many times, this fragrance is complicated for me. It's challenging for me, not because it's animalic or anything. It's the mint in this that comes off like toothpaste. Having grown up with mint consumption, it's readily available for us. This smells like toothpaste because mint does not smell like this to me. This is toothpastey mint. Once that toothpastey mint fizzles away, then it's nice. Because I love geranium and fragrances, but so much of this smells like toothpaste. Or maybe mouthwash or something. Because that turns me off as a perfume. And I use toothpaste because I brush my teeth like 2 or 3 times a day. But I don't want to wear it as a fragrance, For me, one of the most naturalistic mint fragrances is You or Someone Like You. My mom actually grows mint and she actually dries mint. So we're really heavily into mint as a family. Mint is something that we consume as teas and in foods. And so, yeah, this to me is quite challenging because of the reminder of toothpaste and mouthwash. But once it settles down, you can get a nice blend of mint with geranium. And I think the reason also is it's about the geranium. And if you haven't heard, geranium, you can bring out minty qualities and rosy qualities or nuances. And here they really have he's really pushed the mint. Because there's also another fragrance from the same house, Frederic Malle, called Rose and Queer. And in that fragrance, Jean-Claude Elena uses the geranium to bring out rosiness. So in this case, it's geranium pushing its mintiness, but more on the toothpastey side, unless he's combining mint in here. That does have that toothpastey kind of mouthwashy minty touch. But I'm just trying to say that the brand has two geranium-focused fragrances, and one of them is focusing on the rosy side, that's Rose and Queer, and this one is Geranium Pour Monsieur, focusing on the mint. So yeah, it's not one of my favorite fragrances, unfortunately, but a lot of people love it. But then again, a lot of people might not be familiar with how realistic mint is, and like most of them, you know, eat chew gum and brush teeth and mouthwash, and it's mint. Mint is like that, but real mint and synthetic mint are like night and day different to me. All right, we're going into the niche revolution section of the video from the years 2010 to 2015. And the very first fragrance that I fell in love with, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I fell in love with AMARIGE not knowing it's Dominique Ropion, and I had to get my mom a bottle. But this is the fragrance, Portrait of a Lady. So this is the fragrance. So I have the 15th anniversary edition here, and I've got the original, which this isn't the original. I have my very first bottle that I bought in 2012, and there's like a little bit left in a 50 ml bottle. This is a much more recent formulation. This is probably the fragrance that Dominique Ropion will be known for. This is his Angel. Like if Olivier Cresp is going to be known for Angel, Dominique Ropion will be known for Portrait of a Lady. And again, the story, walking into Barney's, buying a bottle of a Black Afghano, and people there were smelling Portrait of a Lady, spraying, and how big and loud it is. That smell came all the way to the cashier. And I said, what is that fragrance? Oh, they're spraying Portrait of a Lady. And at that time, it was like only 2 years old because this launched in 2010. And I'm like, oh my God, do I really want Black Afghano? Maybe I prefer to have Portrait of a Lady. I said, no, I'm going to get the Black Afghano, but I'll come back. So I came back a couple of weeks later and bought the Portrait of a Lady. Yeah, it's spices, it's roses, it's incense, it's patchouli, it's fruitiness, it's amber, woods, and a little bit of, what's the word? Did I say incense? It's a bit smoky, but more resins. I think there might even be a little bit of benzoin in here. So it creates an ambery effect in the dry down. What I was trying to get at, it does act a bit like a chypre. C-H-Y-P-R-E. The word Cyprus in French, referring to the island of Cyprus, but referring to a style of fragrance known as chypre. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, it's been sadly, it's not as beefy as it used to be. Let's try the anniversary edition from last year. It's still similar, but my other bottle is much better than the anniversary edition. I just wanted the collector bottle, and I bought it discounted. Who's a fan and who's not a fan? Okay, up next, going back to Costume National for 2011, it's Pop Collection. Now, I just recently bought this, highly discounted online. I don't know much about it. Let's try it again. It's a bit fruity, but almost waxy fruity. I almost feel like my bottle is turned because it was a tester, I think. It came in a plain brown. Not a brown, but like a plain box. It wasn't in like its own presentation. Seems to be, yeah, a little waxy, kind of fruity, like fruity gummies or something comes to mind. It's not very strong. That initial blast was a bit off, I think. It's not something that's super exciting. It was only $30 for this too, so it was very cheap. Who knows this one? I'm a big fan of the brand, so I had to get that one. When I did my Costume National deep dive video, there is a Costume National deep dive video, by the way, so go catch that video if you're curious to learn more about Costume National. I noticed online that there were some, you know, fragrances highly discounted, so I quickly bought them because I didn't have them. And right now, I gotta learn it a little bit, but it seems a bit fruity, but also very waxy. That's the way I'm experiencing it. Then we've got another Costume National from 2012 called So Nude. But look at how they've done the So Nude. Who's familiar with this one? And are you guys a fan of Costume National? This is super powdery and musky. There's also a creamy consistency about it. The idea of skin comes to mind with this one. Obviously, that's why it's called So Nude. So it's kind of like a skin scent, with the skin being the topic or the idea for the fragrance. Creamy, powdery, musky. Let me know if you're familiar with that. So that is So Nude from Costume National. All right, up next, going to the house of Chopard, Oud Malaki. So I have a bottle that I had purchased going back to around 2016, maybe 2015. This is a newer bottle. The other bottle is not as full though. This was a very, very popular designer oud fragrance around the time of 2015, 2016, 2014, 2015, 2016. A lot of people used to talk about it. It wasn't as easy to find this one at the time. It is now, and I do have a video on all of the Malaki fragrances. So it's a spicy, ambery designer oud fragrance. So it's an oud accord. I think it's one of those designer oud fragrances that are definitely fun to have. If you're on a budget, you don't want to spend a lot of money for expensive fragrances, and you want oud, but you don't want the Middle Eastern animalic variety, this one will come in hand. It's very spicy. I think there's a cardamom spiciness. Maybe there's a little bit of saffron in here, so slight leathery, but it's ambery, and that oudy woody accord is pretty prominent. This was all the hype for a long, long time. I don't consider it one of the best fragrances of Dominique Ropion, but then again, people love it. All right, next, it's La Vie Belle, also created by created by Dominique Ropion, but created with Anne Flippo and Olivier Polge. So Olivier Polge has done quite a few fragrances for or with Dominique Ropion, and it makes sense that he was with IFF. But also, I thought that he co-created Dior Homme with François Demachet. Is that true? Anybody know? So this is La Vie Belle, long-standing fragrance. Another one with a ton of flankers. I've got only two in this video. The flanker that I have is really good, by the way, but I'll get to that in a little bit. This, to me, I feel like is heavily inspired by Coco Mademoiselle. It's got that patchouli. It's got a slight fruitiness. It's a bit chocolatey and a bit floral. What do you guys think? Do you get what I'm getting? Do you think it's This also reminds me of, oh God, what is the fragrance from Montal? It's Oud. It reminds me of the Oud from Montaub, and I'm forgetting the name of that one. Very much the Oud with the fig note. Anyway, it's reminding me of that here, but it also really reminds me of something like Coco Mademoiselle. Coco Mademoiselle has a bit more sharpness. This is a bit more softer, but very much in that similarity. Who's a fan? La Vie est Belle. Lancôme is also a L'Oreal owned brand. Whoops. Up next, going to the house of, used to be A Lab on Fire. It's now called What We Do is Secret. Bottles don't look like this anymore. The bottles do look like this now. And this is another fragrance that he did for the same house. I'll get to that in a little bit. I have a full review of this on the channel. What We Do is Secret. What We Do in Paris is Secret. So basically the brand was A Lab on Fire. They changed the name to What We Do is Secret. So they pretty much ripped the name off of this fragrance and they called the brand What We Do is Secret, right? What We Do is Secret, yeah. But the fragrance is called What We Do in Paris is Secret. And it's a Tonka Gourmand. Whoa. I know Tonka is very popular. It's sweet, slightly nutty, ambery, woody, spicy. Lightly chocolatey, but there's no chocolate. I'm just getting a chocolatey effect. But I think it's more the texture of the Tonka that's creating that kind of a, you know, like a chocolate thing. I used to wear this one quite a bit. In fact, I've gone through multiple bottles. And the brand has gone through multiple bottles as well. The very first time I bought this, way early on, was in a clear bottle. It looked different than it was this. Now all of their bottles are like this. What We Do is Secret. But this is really quite awesome. I love this fragrance. So this is What We Do in Paris is Secret by What We Do is Secret. All right. Next comes one of the worst fragrances that I think Dominique Ropion has created, but thankfully he didn't create it by himself. He created it with three other perfumers. So 4 perfumers creating one fragrance. Sometimes that's a recipe for disaster. I don't know. What do you guys think? Too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And I think this is definitely one of the worst fragrances that I've ever put my nose on. And it was so popular. I used to smell this on a lot of guys. And I was like, ugh, I can't stand this fragrance. This is Invictus, launched in 2013. This is a broken bottle. This thing is broken. So that's why we have a lot of leakage here. I hated this fragrance so much. On the previous channel, I shot a video of me breaking the bottle. That video never made it on air, sadly. I don't get this fragrance. It smells so cheap and synthetic. I just don't get it. So let me tell you guys something. If I'm putting down a fragrance, don't take it personally. It's not you I'm putting down. It's the fragrance. Also, I shouldn't really put down the perfumers behind it. Yes, 4 people can come up with something really weird. I've been in the business of advertising and music, and it was always a recipe for disaster if there were too many decision makers involved. This, to me, is a disaster. But again, I shouldn't blame the perfumers. It's the people behind the brand, which is owned by Puig, Paco Rabanne. It's like a seawater sludge. It's aquatic marine, spicy, murky, fishy, sweaty. I don't know. People like that smell, I guess. I don't understand. They like fragrances like this, but they put their nose up to fragrances from the 80s. I don't get that part either. Who's a fan? Now, there are flankers that came after that were decent. Not like wow, but they were decent. But this stuff is vile. I don't care for it. It's also so strong that I used to smell a lot of guys wear it. I'm like, God, he's wearing Invictus. It's also one of the ugliest bottles, I think. Anyway, enough about that one. Let's move on to going from Invictus to the Night. The cheapest, most expensive. So different. This is Dominique Ropion by himself, creating, I think, the very first Desert Gems fragrance. I shouldn't spray too much because this stuff is expensive. Oof, it's also pretty out there. But, you know, I actually really enjoy this one. Real natural oud. It's got a funk to it. Beneath it all, there's a light rosiness. When you smell this, you almost smell the skeleton of Portrait of a Lady in a very animalic oud experience. Like, if you can remove the oud, what remains there is the skeleton of what Portrait of a Lady does. So that's why I always say this will be great layered with Portrait of a Lady, because you're smelling somewhat of what Portrait of a Lady smells, but it's so stripped away. It's not like there, but it's there kind of, right? So I always think that it's great to layer it with, because in the end, this is a very expensive fragrance. It's oud, 100% natural oud on the animalic side. So you have to be in the right mindset or mood to appreciate a fragrance like this. And once you do, you would like it. I like this one, but I wouldn't say it's like one of the best fragrances ever created. It's animalic, but I would much prefer to wear something like Papillon Perfumery's Salome versus this, because this one, it's the oud that I like, but I'm not the biggest fan of oud. So I think you can layer this with Portrait of a Lady. In fact, there have been fragrances that have had the same kind of animalic oudy funk with the same kind of spicy rose patchouli incense thing. Yeah, there's even like an incensey vibe here as well. It's a very Middle Eastern fragrance. I would say it's quite good. And once they created that, then Frederic Malle started creating more Desert Gems fragrances. The next one after that was something less expensive and more mass appealing, I think. But I think there's a market and taste and place for fragrances like the Night. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on the Night. I know it's very expensive. It's even gotten more expensive. When it first came out, it was $1,000. I think $950, something like that. And then in like little by little, price went up. Next, we've got two fragrances from Juicebox. So Juicebox's Micro Love, which I'm not too familiar with. The next one after this, I am a little bit more familiar with. The next one after this is Beat Cafe. So if you guys don't know Juicebox, it's a brand inspired by music. Micro Love seems to be fresh, fruity, aquatic. Color, maybe a bit marine. But very spicy too. I don't know which inspiration this one is. Like what music. So it's either a band or a genre or a singer. It's not one of my favorite fragrances here, Micro Love, unfortunately. If you're a fan, let me know. It does remind me a little bit of Invictus, but not as vile as Invictus is. This next one is quite good. It's Beat Cafe from Juicebox. And this is inspired by the Beat generation and the music and the cafes and cigarette smoking that was hip happening at that time. So it's boozy, it's tobacco, it's a smoky lounge kind of a feel. anybody into fragrances like Pavillon Rouge, Jazz Club should appreciate. There's a creamy, cozy consistency about it. Yeah, that's Beat Cafe. It's not one of my all-time favorites, by the way. But that's Beat Cafe. I think this one has a following, though. I prefer this one over Micro Love. All right, so next, we've got Cologne Indelible. If you're a fan of fragrances like 4711, Neroli Portofino, that eau de cologne style in a more robust form, this is definitely an awesome, fragrance. So it's a very citrusy, but also citrus floral, very soapy, clean, green, a little green, slightly green, very, very invigorating. I absolutely love this. He did such a good job. But I mean, it's not like we've never not smelled anything like this, but the version he's given us is quite good. And it's also concentrated and thick, so it's got good longevity. Cologne Indelible. Very fresh and perfect for warm days. Or if you want to pick me up during the cold days. Next, probably I think one of the best from Costume National, I should say, it's Soul. Are you familiar with Soul? So this is oud. It's amber with ambergris. It's spicy, woody, dark, smoky. Once again, this is not animalic. This is not like the NIGHT. This is more like an oud accord. You definitely pick up the cypriol touch in here, or the papyrus touch. There's a fiery warmth about it because it's quite ambery. It's hot, fiery. It's really good. Like if you think that the NIGHT is like way too expensive, because it is, and you don't mind wearing a Western oud, because most of us are probably wearing Western oud. We're not wearing the real Middle Eastern ouds. This is definitely one of the best. It's not one of the cheap ones like Oud Malaki. It's also a bit more difficult to get because Costume National is not distributed here, but it's definitely worth finding. Really solid. Soul from Costume National. Okay, now we're going to a brand that I have no freaking idea what the heck happened to this brand. So in 2015, 3 years after I had started doing videos, a brand appeared on the scene called ORLOV, O-R-L-O-V. And they launched the whole collection of fragrances, and all of them were created by Dominique Ropion. So I fell in love with Star of the Season. And it's a spicy sandalwood fragrance. I haven't opened these up since probably 2018, maybe 2019. So this also smelled like Valentino's Uomo Noir Absolu. You guys familiar with that one? It got discontinued. It was in the black bottle, but before they went to L'Oreal. It was under Puig at the time. But this stuff, it's a really great spicy, creamy sandalwood fragrance. So awesome. And then on top of that, there was the Elixir edition, Star of the Season. It was actually taking the original into even more of a luxurious territory. My bottles are messed up, unfortunately. Maybe if I can clean them, they will come off, but I think the sheen is gone. Yeah, this is actually even more dense. The sandalwood is like super luxurious. Super awesome scents, both of them. I mean, let me tell you about the 4 fragrances that I have from the brand, and I'll tell you the drama. Because there is some drama about this brand. So there was those 2. Whoa. There's this one, Sea of Light. It's a fruity, aquatic, freshy but long-lasting. I hope this one hasn't turned. No, it hasn't. This, oh my God, I used to feature this one quite a bit. It's zesty, it's juicy, it's aquatic, it's fresh. Oh man, it's good. I can't believe how good it is. Dominique Ropion has created really awesome fragrances for this brand. And again, I'm going to get to the drama in a minute. I love this. It's so good. Sea of Light. It was one of my favorites. Finally, Flame of Gold by ORLOV Paris. This one I'm not too familiar with. Let me see if I can remember. This one seems more ambery, spicy, and resinous. But this one's also good. This brand was so good until, oh, this is really developing nicely. So awesome. Wow. Oh man, that is delicious. Okay, let me tell you the drama. So the brand launched in 2015. I did videos on the channel. You can search for them. Although it might be on the previous channel. I can't remember quite. Yeah, I don't know. You might find them. Look for ORLOV, O-R-L-O-V. And so some people started contacting me and saying, I just bought the fragrance you were reviewed and it smells nothing like what you said. And I'm like, what? What's going on? A few comments like that came in, you know, messages and emails. And I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? So I had to do some research, trying to figure out a way to get to the brand. They had pulled all the fragrances and they had gotten them all reformulated, completely changed them by other perfumers. Like, what the heck? You guys, what did you do to this? These fragrances are so damn good. So damn good. Like all four of these, well, one of them is the same, just a stronger concentration. But this last one, Flame of Gold, oh man. Awesome, awesome amber. Dominique Ropion created some awesome masterpieces there. I don't know what the heck happened, but they completely changed the fragrances a year and a half, 2 years later. Like, I mean, what do I do? The reviews says this, now the fragrance is this. I never got the new versions. I think the new versions, at least one or two was created by Quinton Biche. But nobody said anything about why they changed them. I couldn't figure it out, but I'm talking about one fragrance. Somebody else is smelling something completely different. So now I have no idea what happened to the brand. I don't know where they're at. I don't even know if they're existing. I know either earlier in the 2020s or late 2010s, they relaunched the brand again with completely new fragrances. And I don't even know if Star of the Season, Flame of Gold, Sea of Light were still in existence. But I think they've disappeared. And I don't know where they are. If anybody has info on ORLOV Paris, let me know. Why the heck did they change the formulas of these fragrances? That is very strange. Super strange. I don't know why people do that. But you know what? It also has happened with the Harmonist. A lot of the Harmonist's white bottles were reformulated. Once again, people ask me, why are you saying this smells like this? It smells nothing like that. And then I actually asked at Neiman's for one of their associates, and they said, oh, they had to reformulate it. Something was wrong. So all of the white bottles got reformulated, which is really weird that they do that because the fragrances end up smelling completely different. But this was one of the strangest cases with ORLOV Paris. I just don't get it. All right, we've got two more fragrances here, and then we're going to go to the next category. Then this next one's a cheapie. This is O Boticario's Malbec Noir from 2015 with another co-perfumer by the name of Napoli Bastos. I have a video on the channel of these fragrances. Malbec is a kind of wine. I'm a big red wine lover. None of these smell really Malbec wine-like. I think they're just using the name, making 12,000 flankers. But this is kind of a dark, smoky, woody fragrance. Not much brightness there. That's why it's called noir. I think it's quite simplistic, nothing groundbreaking and truly original, but somebody that likes dark, woody, spicy, smoky fragrances would appreciate that for an everyday wear. So that is Malbec Noir by O Boticario, a Brazilian brand. And then the last fragrance in this category is Mugler's Alien Oud Magisto. Only that much left. Sadly, I was looking for another bottle recently, and I did find the Musk Mysterio, which Dominique also did. That's the fragrance I ordered, and it hasn't arrived yet. I don't know what's going on. I hope it doesn't get canceled. But this one I have a full review of. It's basically oud with the original alien DNA. So you've got alien here, but it's laced with an oud accord. It's woody, it's spicy, it's cypriol papyrus overdosed. So you're smelling that kind of clean, almost soapy jasmine here, that kind of neon smelling jasmine. And it's meshed with the weight of the heaviness of the woods, the oud accord in here. That's what it is, basically. Oud was very popular in the 2010s. And of course, a lot of fragrances became oud this and oud that. And of course, Mugler's Alien series became oud as well. And Dominique did a great job with it. Anybody get their nose on this one? All right, we're done with this category. We're moving to the Creative Boom 2016 to 2019 fragrances. And there's a whole lot here. So I'm going to eventually have to pause the video in a little bit and also switch out fragrances. But let's get started with Frederic Mall's Superstitious from 2016 with a signed Frederic Mall. I met him and he signed my bottle. In fact, for this event, I bumped into him the day before on the street and I said, hello, how are you? And we chatted and took a photo together. But then there was an event at Barney's the following day and I bought Superstitious. The Superstitious is sadly discontinued because it was a similar collaboration to the Dries Van Noten. This is Albert Elbaz, who passed away, a fashion designer from Paris, I believe. And so I think that's why this is discontinued. This is a Dominique Ropion creation. Superstitious. Are you superstitious? This is definitely rose and aldehydes with an ambery spicy base. Woody. I think it's a bit animalic. There's a funk to it. It's also super, super potent. But it's really, really nicely done. This is the case of aldehydes that I like, which the aldehydes is there. It's not lifting the fragrance. It's making it deeper. It's weighing it down. So it's almost like it's fighting with the aldehydes, which, you know, is airy, lifts it up. But a lot of heavy notes that are here are, you know, bringing it down, weighing it down, which I kind of like more deeper, denser, heavier notes. I do appreciate aldehydes. Aldehydes are not my super favorite note, and I like them in fragrances like this. Like, I love Rien Intense Incense, which is also aldehydes. Really love that. And again, once again, it does give it a lightness, but it's not lifting it up. It's giving it a little bit of lightness is basically. But this is discontinued, Frederic Mall Superstitious, sadly. And who knows? I don't know. There's rumor that Dries Van Noten is coming back. Maybe it'll come back this year. I know there's a new fragrance coming from Frederic Mall, created by Annick Menardo. It's an Immortelle focused fragrance. But I had heard a rumor that Dries Van Noten is coming back as a different fragrance, a different name. Let's see if that really happens, because they discontinued that one because Dries Van Noten launched his own fragrances. So, you know, I'm assuming it might happen with Acne Studios as well. I mean, obviously all brands are launching fragrances. So, but this was a different case. This was a, I think, yeah, Albert Elbaz, I think was a different kind of collaboration. But anyway, the next fragrance we're talking about is Stark Paris Peau de Soie from 2016, which I have a video on the channel of the 3 fragrances that launched together. And I discovered these in Neiman Marcus, actually. This is just a super powdery floral fragrance. Pretty not groundbreaking, but if you're into the powdery, almost makeup-y fragrances, then that one's should satisfy. For a while, these fragrances were selling so cheap. Maybe they're still selling really cheap. I think they're worth it for the price point. Like $30, $40 is really inexpensive. So look for them. But this might come off a bit simplistic, but I think it's well crafted. It's just not anything like wow. I think also the thing with this one, you can layer it. It has room for layering. There's that airy earthiness and the airy ethereal quality that it lends itself for, you know, contrasting with something different. Like maybe you can layer it with something vanillic, you can layer it with something musky, you can layer it with something woody to give it a little bit of a push. Like patchouli might be really great with that. Patchouli and rose might be great with that. Anyway, that is Stark Paris Peau de Soie. It's a fragrance created, well, for the designer, Philippe Starck. Next, What We Do Is Secrets, Messy, Sexy, Just Rolled Out of Bed. Yummy Gourmand, by the way. So this used to be called a Lab on Fire, but it's now called What We Do Is Secret. And this is Messy, Sexy, Just Rolled Out of Bed. What a name. And basically, it's kind of a doughy gourmand to me. Sweet, doughy, a bit fluffy, creamy. Not like over-the-top gourmand, like sugary sweet, but there's sweetness here. It's super cozy, I think, because of that doughy texture. It's quite yum. For me, it's more about What We Do is Secret in Paris. What We Do in Paris is secret. I always forget. But this is pretty darn good too. Messy, Sexy, Just Rolled Out of Bed. It's cozy. So the word bed gives you the cozy idea. Up next, going to the House of Lancôme, it's Jasmine's Marzipan. What a yummy fragrance. The idea of jasmine and marzipan together, it works so well. This collection, man, there were some good ones. The Iris created by Nathalie Lorson was so good. Was it Iris Dragé? Was that what it was called? This is just almonds and jasmine together. Again, it's Dominique knows white flowers so well. I mean, he does them so well. And it's a beautiful jasmine with the light, fragile touch of almonds, you know? It's almost like almonds that are raw, that have just ripened, not completely hard. You know, when you're peeling them, shelling them off of the green almonds that are not like completely dry yet. And inside it, there's the white part. It's a bit more like that. So there's a kind of an angelic quality about it. And against the jasmine, it's really lovely. And the jasmine is also not indolic, not dirty. Super awesome. I think it's discontinued, including the iris too. Yeah, Dominique Ropion does some great work and some bad work too. But anyway, we can't have perfect all the time. So Boucheron's Eau de Carthage. Once again, so Boucheron has this upper end collection of fragrances, and I have, what, 3 of them? I have the, let's see, what do I have? I have the Tonka, and I have the Amber. I have those 3, and the Oud, obviously. I think the Oud is decent. I prefer the Tonka and the Amber. And the Oud, to me, is in the ballpark of Oud Malaki. Yeah, it is. Both Chopard and Boucheron are jewelry companies. Jewelry brands, I should say. Yeah, it's very similar to Oud Malaki. Launched. And this was, the Oud Malaki was 2015, I believe. The Oud de Carthage is 2017. So you might be repetitive to have both. Then we've got another fragrance from Frederic Mall's Desert Gems collection. It's Promise. Who's a fan of Promise? There's a lady that lives in my building that used to wear this one. I used to smell it off of her. And I was like, I never thought that you would be wearing this fragrance. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't smell much fragrance on her anymore. But what I like about this one, it acts a bit oody, but there's no oud. There is cypriol here, which is providing that kind of barrel-aged woodiness. And also this booziness. There's apples and rose here. So it does act a little oody, but it's not oud. It's the cypriol, which kind of goes to show that they use cypriol to create the oud accord when they don't want to use the real oud. And this acts like it, but it's not. But it's also providing that kind of barrel-aged smell. Like you're walking into a distillery and they have those wooden barrels and you can smell the fermentation of the fruits together with the wood. You get that here with Promise. Very realistic too. I love that about it. So that is Frederic Mall's Promise, the least expensive fragrance in the Desert Gems collection. And up next, I think this is now moved into another bottle, but this is Supreme Bouquet by YSL. It's been a while since I've smelled this one. I think this used to also come in the more square bottles that were similar to the M7 Oud Absolu bottles, which they moved to this, and then now it's moved into the regular Le Vestiaire collection. This is just a floral bomb. White flowers to the max. If you don't like white flowers, stay away from this one. It's super white floral heavy. I don't know why I bought this. It's not one of my favorites. In fact, I prefer Alien more than this. This tuberose in here is reminding me a bit more like a vintage style tuberose, and I think that's why I'm not appreciating it as much. But at the time, I was really looking forward to this. What do you guys think? I think it's nicely done. I just don't love it as much. Supreme Bouquet by YSL. Has it moved into the new? Yeah, it does say tuberose and ylang ylang. This moved into the other collection, I think, the regular Le Vestiaire, which is actually now also changed because Baby Cat is called something bourbon, I think, right? Okay, we've got 3 juice box fragrances back to back. We've got Feather Supreme. This is also a white floral bomb, but very modern, kind of juicy, but creamy, a little fruity. Very fresh, airy. That's quite lovely, actually. It's kind of like a morning blooming of floral notes, or flowers, I should say. Feather Supreme from Juice Box. Are you familiar with that one? Up next, Livin' Loud. Who's familiar with Livin' Loud? This is very fresh and spicy. I'm not remembering who the music inspirations are, so I can't speak about that, unfortunately. but super spicy. But there's a freshness about it. There's an underlying kind of earthiness in the base as well, woods. But this is something that's a bit simplistic, but has some depth to it in the base, which I think for somebody that wants something long-lasting could wear something like this to linger on for a while. It's quite sexy. And then the one that I'm quite familiar with is Feel and Chill. And I'm not a fan of watermelon and fragrances. This one's quite good for a watermelon fragrance. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of them. But the fruitiness, the freshness, the ozonic touches gives it a light aquatic marine thing. It's also blue here. But it's a fun fragrance, I think. That there's almost like a candied watermelon touch to it. And it makes for, it's got like a comforting quality, like you want to smell it because there's a familiar watermelony juiciness, slight cucumber leaning, which is what's providing that aquatic marine experience here. I like that for a watermelon fragrance, actually. It's sweet also, but not like the sweetest watermelon. When I eat watermelon, because I love them, I want them to be sweet, but there are people that probably want less of the sweetness. I kind of like my watermelon sweet, but in there it's perfect. It's not super sweet. But moving on to YSL. Yves Saint Laurent's Y EDP launched in 2018. Once again, not one of my all-time favorite collections, but I think Dominique does fragrances. I think what happens, here's what happens, I think these brands or the conglomerates probably reach out to multiple different perfumers. They might even reach out to IFF and go to the other houses. And they ask for people's mods. Like, okay, this is the brief. Give us what you think it should smell like. And then they get the mods from the different companies and the different perfumers. And then the one they like, they pursue it. And then they, you know, change it up and, you know, modify it further, and then they have a fragrance. So most likely that's how Dominique probably gets a lot of work, because not only is he known as one of the genius perfumers, but also because he does things that the brands like, I guess. But I think the EDT of Y is, to me, the worst of the bunch. But by the time we got to the EDP, it's a bit better. But this is a blue fragrance. It's kind of fruity. It's kind of crisp. It's got an aquatic twist, plus lots of woods and spices. Actually, I should also say there's probably aromatics here too, giving it like a modern blue fougere vibe. Anyway, that is YSL's Y in Eau de Parfum concentration. So up next, we've got Oman Luxuries Oud Aquilaria. So I had heard about Oman Luxury in the latter part of the 2010s, but I knew that their bottles were different, but I had forgotten about the brand. And when I rediscovered the brand in the early 2020s, I fell in love with Royal Incense because I smelled it at Jovoy. I was like, wow, this is so good. And then it took me a couple of revisits to the brand to remember that they used to have bottles that were different. So it's not a new brand kind of a thing. So I guess Oud Aquilaria is one of the first fragrances that he did for, Dominique Ropion did for Oman Luxury. The oud he's using here might remind you, it's like an oud accord. It might remind you of the same oud that's in Chopard's Oud Malaki, or even the Oud de Carthage. But with Oud Aquilaria, it is much more robust, more going into the niche, not so mass market with the Chopard and Boucheron. But in the end, now that I'm smelling them around one another, they definitely have similarities, if that makes sense to you guys. But for me, I like the robustness of the Oud Aqualaria. And I like the name. Let me know if you're a fan. Okay, now we're going to talk about one of the most difficult fragrance names of all time. L'Interdit by Givenchy. From 2018, created with Anne Flippo and Fanny Bal. So the word is that Fanny Bal got trained under Dominique Ropion. And did I tell you guys that I dined with Dominique Ropion? I somehow ended up meeting somewhere, and I was having dinner, and Dominique Ropion was invited. So it was this really awesome restaurant known for fish, and we had, what was it? A sea bass cooked under salt. Delicious. So yeah, but Dominique Ropion, I have to be honest, is so super shy and soft-spoken. And I'm a very shy person myself, so it was like a bit challenging because I do open up to people quite fast, but it made it a bit challenging to communicate with Dominique because he was so soft-spoken and so shy. So very interesting experience. But I've since that dining experience, I've since bumped into him several times and spoken to him. Still very, very soft-spoken and very shy, but he does do some good work. So L'Interdit, I think that's how you say it. Again, I'm not a native French speaker. I need to go live in France to speak French. It's a redo of a classic that's been like from the 50s or 60s. And it was the fragrance of Audrey Hepburn. So, I mean, it's another tuberose balm. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Carnal Flower. The tuberose is that green kind of tuberose. There's a slight fruitiness here, but I think it's super gorgeous for a tuberose from a designer. Who's a fan? There's, I think, apples here. I think that's what I'm getting. It's like a crispness. And there's woods in the base. There's a creamy layer. It does have a very designer side to it, which when you smell the Carnal Flower from Frederic Malle, it doesn't come off designery. Because somehow in designer fragrances, they just put some kind of a DNA that you can kind of, it reminds you of other designer fragrances. I don't get that from the Frederic Malle. But what I do get the similarities of is the tuberose that he's using here. This is the more fruity kind. The Carnal Flower from Frederic Malle is more of the green kind. No, the tuberose itself is green, but this has the fruitiness, whereas the Carnal Flower has the coconut, so, and the eucalyptus, which gives it that kind of menthol, kind of camphor greenness. Other than that, I think the tuberose is very similar. So that's L'Interdit from Givenchy. I wish I got my nose on the original L'Interdit. I would love to have a vintage bottle here, but I don't, sadly. So up next from 2018. So going back to the L'Interdit, I was mentioning that Fanny Bal trained under Dominique Ropion. This is what I've heard from people at Frederic Malle, because Fanny Bal did one fragrance for Frederic Malle called Sale Gosse, which is a tuberose. I'm sorry, no, not a tuberose. It's an orange blossom neroli fragrance. And so it makes sense that they've kind of worked together to create this fragrance. But let's move on to the House of Issey Miyake. It's Nuit de Issey Noir Argent. So I bought this quite a long time ago, and I smelled it, and I really loved it for a designer, but it's discontinued, and definitely one of the best flankers, but it doesn't really smell like the original. It smells totally different. It's quite dark, woody, spicy, but it's definitely a great flanker or a great designer offering. I mean, it's a flanker, but there's not much of the original left in here. Mostly it's woods and spices and amber. it's more of like a base notes kind of fragrance. It's kind of smoky also. There's not much top notes is what I'm trying to say when I say it's more like a base notes kind of fragrance. Who's gotten their nose on this one? I don't think this was around for a long time, but definitely a great men's designer offering. It's Eau de Parfum concentration. All right, so we're almost done with this section, but I've got 5 fragrances from one brand, and then I have to pause because I couldn't fit the rest of the fragrances, and I have to switch over, and I've got a few more fragrances left in this category, and then we have 2 more pages left after that. But we're going to the house of Miles Wambao. Are you guys familiar with this house? It's a very small house that I discovered in 2019. The fragrances were launched in 2019. And I learned that the bottles are created by Pierre Dinan. I've got a video on the channel with Pierre if you are curious to learn more about his bottles. The bottles are very unique. They almost look like lighters. So here we go. Coup d'etat. Whoops, sorry about that. There you go. Very interesting bottles. Yep, if you guys are curious about Pierre Dinan, go and watch my video with him. Look, I put that in the place of my eyes. Now I look like this. That's kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, go watch my video with Pierre Dinan. He's one of the world's most famous bottle designers. Have I shown any bottles that he did? He might have made the Safari bottle. He might have. He might have made the AMARIGE bottle. I can't think of any other bottles that he might have made here in this section of this portion of the video. Nope. But he's done all of the Miles Wambao bottles. So, coup d'etat. I should also mention, all of the fragrances from Miles Wambao are co-created with Jean-Louis Suizac. If you're a fan of Dior Homme Intense, you've got to get your nose on this. Gives me the idea of Dior Homme Intense. This definitely is my favorite from the line. What do you guys think of the bottles? See, it's not that easy to spray this. That's the only problem. But it does hide the sprayer, and that thing is really cool, I think. Very nicely done, designed. All right. Let's go to the next fragrance. We've got Hot Shot. If I can find it. Hot Shot. We started with my favorite from the line, so the rest of them might be a bit more difficult to explain. This one has a creamy vanillic sweetness, but there's also a little bit of a bitter woodiness. This is definitely vanillic, but not super gourmand. It's hot. There's a hot spiciness about it. Anyway, that is Hot Shot. What do you guys think of these? It's kind of cool, huh? Anyway, that's kind of an interesting look. Next, we've got Mood for Oud. That kind of just tells you what the fragrance is all about. Do you have a mood for oud? This is mostly a fresh oud. I kind of like the fresh oud. It's definitely easier to wear all year round, mostly in the summer, but you have that depth of the oud, and this is once again an oud accord. It's not Middle Eastern oud, not the real oud. But I like the freshness. It's a bit spicy. It's a bit citrusy, lemony, but smelling really awesome. It's quite zesty, actually, come to think of it. All right, then we've got... Oh, we've got what? We've got 2 more. So we've got Son of a Gun. This bottle looks like what bottle, guys? Famous men's designer fragrance from the 80s, late 80s. What does it look like? Fahrenheit. That's really funny. So, son of a gun. Let's see if it smells like Fahrenheit. No, this is leather. Well, Fahrenheit was leather, right? This is not smelling like Fahrenheit. It doesn't have that violet leaves, ozonic touch. This is more darker, smokier leather, maybe ambers and woods. Ooh, it's brightening up to smell really nice. Not a lot of funk, but there is some funk. I think there might be a little bit of ozonic touch here. It's going into more of a Middle Eastern leather direction rather than like what Fahrenheit smelled like or smells like. So that's son of a gun. Finally, it's Sure Shot. What do you guys think of the colored? There's either the juice colors or there's the colored bottles. So my favorite, I would say, is the son of a gun bottle is really cool. The color combo for that. Okay, this is the last fragrance and I'm going to pause the video here. This one actually is my least favorite. It's spicy and aromatic, I think. This is more of a freshie, but more going into a masculine men's kind of direction. There's a little bit of a minty kind of camphor-like touch about it. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it seems like the most common. It definitely has a men's fragrance styling to it. Aromatics, spices, woods. It's a bit blue, but I wouldn't say it's like really like blue, but the aromatics, like I think there's lavender in here, gives me a little bit of that blue quality. All right, so that is Miles Wamba's Sure Shot. Let me know if you're familiar with this fragrance. These are 5 fragrances from the house launched in 2019 with amazing looking bottles created by Pierre Dinan. And the fragrances are co-created by Dominique Ropion and Jean-Louis Suizac, both of which are from IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances. All right, gang, table has been replaced and we've got a few more fragrances left off the last page I'm working on. And then we're gonna start a new page and we've got 2 more pages left. So I think this video organizing the fragrances was a bit more complicated. Somehow I had added fragrances to the list and somehow when I was organizing it by year, some of them got dropped off for some strange reason. I usually use Excel to organize by year and things, but it somehow dropped off some fragrances. So anyway, I figured it out. And let's get moving on with the collection of fragrances from Dominique Ropion. So we ended with, excuse me, Miles Wambao, excuse me. So we ended with Miles Wambao Sure Shot. We're going to the house of Al Jazeera next, Venice. So I only have a tiny bottle. I probably should not have added this in the list, but I actually featured it in a video review of Al Jazeera fragrances. Let's see if I remember this one. We do have one more fragrance from the brand. And it's in a regular size bottle. Wow, okay, so this smells like what Dominique Ropion is known for, his white floral bombs. It's a very creamy floral. Have you guys heard of this brand, by the way? If you ever travel to Paris and you go on the Champs-Élysées, there is a store there. My favorite from the house is Patchouli. So awesome. They also have a fragrance called Los Angeles. Oh man, it's so great. Those 2 fragrances I really love. This one, it's another floral fragrance. It's white flowers. I enjoy white flowers, but if I had to pick a favorite note, patchouli, vanilla would win over white flowers, if that makes sense. So it's fresh, it's creamy, it's spring-like, slight fruitiness in there as well. I don't know how much it has to do with Venice, but it's called Venice from Al Jazeera. Up next, I think it's a discontinued fragrance from Penhaligon's. This is Heartless Helen. This is also a white floral bomb. The problem with these bottle caps, they kind of start changing. Yeah. I think eventually juice lands on the fragrances, you know, being sprayed in the room, and it gets on them. It gets sticky, dusty. So always keep them in boxes, but I just don't have the space. Unfortunately, this is not a favorite fragrance of mine. This is kind of a vintage white floral tuberose thing once again. I don't like this one. I like it, I just don't love it, but I would have to put that in the very back end of the list of fragrances that I like of his. Kind of reminds me of Fracka. Not as bubblegummy, but similar tuberose, which that kind of kickstarted my hatred for vintage tuberose. Not sure why. Here, next, we're going to the House of Armani, part of the Armani Privé collection. It's Orangerie Venice. Orangerie. You guys know what an orangerie is? I always thought that having a perfume brand with the word orangerie in it would be really cool, but I think there's been some that have come and gone. It's like a green room in a castle, big mansions, and this is called Orangerie Venice. It's a citrus-focused fragrance. Whoa. We've got two Venice fragrances back to back. I guess he created two Venice-named fragrances in 2019. The Al Jazeera Venice, and this is Orangerie Venice from Armani. I really love this one. I fell in love with it. I sampled it at a perfume shop in Cannes in 2019, and I bought it. It's a orange-focused fragrance. It's called Orangerie, but it's kind of spicy, a little zesty, sweet tart. It's really a nice citrus. All right, so that's Orangerie Venice from Armani. And we've got two more fragrances from the same house on this list, and then we're moving on to the next page. We're going to the House of Olfactive Studio. It's Iris Shot. So, becoming a big lover of Iris, initially this didn't really excite me. It has grown on me quite a bit. It's basically super powdery and super creamy. Slight vegetal touches. You can kind of pick up the rawness of the iris or orris root. It's a bit sweet. But this has grown on me quite a bit. I think when I first sampled this, it was like, it came out in 2019. I was heavily into the Dior Homme Parfum DNA. But I think this is also going a little bit leathery. The Iris Shot, but really nicely done. Dominique Ropion does good work for Iris. There's actually... Whoa, I think I'm missing a fragrance here, now that I think about it. Something happened when I was... Yeah, something happened when I was organizing. I think I'm missing a d'Orsay fragrance that he's created that is reminding me of Iris Shot, which I should probably go and grab and add to the list before I forget. I should also say about Iris Shot, it's getting a bit violet-y also. So the idea of the violet and the iris does create a little bit of a makeup-y effect happening. But really solid offering. Iris Shot from the House of Olfactive Studio. What's going on with this house? I haven't seen much or heard much from them. My favorite of the Dominique Ropions, and I don't have the rose, he created 3 fragrances, the rose shot, violet shot, and iris shot. Violet shot is definitely my favorite. If you're looking for a niche take on something like Fahrenheit Le Parfum, this is definitely the fragrance you should try. So, Fahrenheit's violet is more violet leaves. This violet here in Violet Shot, to me, is more of a combo of the violet leaves and also the violet flowers. And then you've got that kind of leathery, vanillic thing happening. It's a bit boozy. It's a bit violet candied. It's so super delicious. It's a really, really awesome scent. So I think it's kind of paying tribute to, I don't know if it really is, but it totally connected with Fahrenheit Le Parfum. But just keeping in mind, there's more of a presence of the actual violet flowers in here rather than the greenness of the leaves. And so it comes off a little bit like candy, like violet candy. If you've ever had violet candy, you're going to smell it here in Violet Shot. But it's really awesome. Super, super awesome. You've got to be into violet to appreciate that. And it's a violet bomb. It's called Violet Shot, but I think it's a violet bomb. All right, so we've got 2 more pages left. Let's move on to another Stark Paris fragrance called Peau d'Amour. These were online for around $30–40, by the way. This is a collection that originally launched in 2016 with 3 fragrances that I discovered at Neiman Marcus. And then they released a few more like 4 or 5 years later. I never really saw them anywhere else. And I don't have too much experience with this. This is discontinued, but as I said, I bought it for around $30–40. I really love this bottle. This is also another fruity floral. The idea of white flowers is pretty prominent here. I'm getting that. It's warming up though. Peau d'Amour. You guys familiar with this one? Sorry, I'm hearing my evening janitorial crew. All right, next, going to the house of Oman Luxury, it's Dijon. So this is a darker bottle. It's definitely something more expensive. I believe this is also an oudi woody fragrance. I much prefer the Oud Aqualaria over this. This is definitely very heavy on the Cypriol. Really can pick it up. It also reminds me a little bit of Promise, but darker. Promise from Frederick Mall. The Cypriol is so heavy in this one in comparison to Promise. So it might be a bit off-putting to some folks. But under there, there's that kind of boozy fruitiness. It hasn't reminded me of Promise that much. It is now. In the past, I should say, it hadn't reminded me too much of Promise. So that's Dijon, or Dehan, from Oman Luxury, a 2020 launch. Then we've got Costume National's Homme Parfum. If you like the original, the Homme Parfum is so good. So good. Basically taking the original DNA into a much more concentrated direction. Oh, it's so much more robust. The spices are still there. It is definitely a bit more warmer. And with this one, I get more dried fruits experience. As I mentioned in the previous one, in the Eau de Parfum, the original, it came off fruity. But this one comes off more like dried fruits, like lots of apricots. Maybe there's some osmanthus in here. But it's spicy, it's fruity. I do get the tea vibe still. But woody, really, really awesome creation for the guys. In the end, it's sweet, but this is more spicy sweet rather than gourmand sweet. It's got a sweetness, which I like. So I find sweetness in fragrances to balance them out. And even in like old school fragrances, there definitely was some sweetness in fragrances. Like Dijon, for me, the previous fragrance, really leaned on the unsweetened side, although on skin it opens up. But the Cypriol note in there is so super strong. But that Costume National Homme Parfum is really, really awesome. So up next, one of my favorite Alien flankers, Alien for the ladies. This is Alien Mirage. Look at the color on this thing is gone, so dark. So apparently this is a co-creation with Fanny Bell. So Fanny Bell is a perfumer that was at IFF. I believe she's moved on to Givaudan now. So this one actually went marine minerally. But I'm so challenged with fragrances that go marine. I really love this. This is like something about the creaminess of the flowers against that minerally marine aquatic touch. It is just really, really great. Like there's a slight fruitiness from the white flowers because Alien is known for jasmine, but it's been given the creamy treatment. So I feel like there's a little sandalwood in here. There's a light fruity touch. It's kind of like a non-distinct fruit. There's a fruitiness, but can't quite tell if it's apple or something. And then you've got that marine minerally thing. It almost gives me like a light take on, ooh. Do you guys remember Womanity? So that is the caviar. So this has a slight saltiness, not going into too much of a caviar direction, but it kind of reminds me of like an offspring of Womanity. Like if Womanity gave birth to an alien child, that's what it is. I get that by a bit of a vibe. I kind of, I'm not saying it smells identical, but somehow some of its DNA is in here. And I don't know who created Womanity from Mugler, but this is definitely one of the best, I think, the Alien Mirage flanker in the Alien series. I really love it. All right, next we've got... Gotta pause. All right, I had left this one off the table, but it had to go grab it. So this is YSL's Y Le Parfum from 2021. Again, not my all-time favorite collection. I do have the fragrances. And the deeper the fragrance gets, like I don't care for the Eau de Toilette. I kind of like the Eau de Parfum. This is the Parfum, which I like better. But also, there's a new version of this in the 2025 edition, I think, right? This just gets very spicy. I think the blueness is gone because it's considered a blue fragrance. It gets darker, maybe a bit resinous, lots of woods, dense woods. It's the Parfum edition of the long-standing Y series. Are you a fan? So that launched in 2021. All right, next we've got a fragrance from the house of Costume National again, Costume National. It's Super Gloss. Are you familiar with this one? This is super fruity, by the way. And look at the color. The orange against that, is it a fuchsia? Is that the color? It's kind of interesting. And you kind of know what you're going to get with this one. It's very fruity. Super, super fruity. Juicy, fruity. Lots of berries. This is a bit waxy as well. It does come off a little bit like makeup. Kind of reminds me a little bit of those wax candies that were popular, the wax lips in the early 80s. That's the kind of, maybe a little bit like Now and Later's. Not my all-time favorite. It's fun. It's a fun fragrance. It's kind of young. That is Super Gloss from the house of Costume National. Then we're going to the house of Estee Lauder. It's Infinite Sky. This collection launched in 2021, discontinued in 2024. What the heck, man? For me, the best in the series is Radiant Mirage. This is kind of a spicy vanilla. So I think you got a lot of pepper. It's either pink pepper or black pepper against the kind of dry vanilla. So it's sweet, but the spices kind of contrast it. And then you've got some woods in there, some ambery touches in the base as well. I think it's for those that don't like sweet, but they don't want like full-on gourmand. I think this is definitely one of my favorites of the line, but again, my favorite is Radiant Mirage. I absolutely love Radiant Mirage. I have a backup bottle of it, but this one's pretty decent. I would have thought he would do something a bit more floral, but I guess this is what Estee Lauder liked. But what the heck happened to this collection? I think they launched some refillable bottles and they launched refills, and then they killed the whole collection. It's such a bummer. Everything has become business, business, business. If it doesn't do well, get rid of it, which is normal. Okay, next we're going to the house of Hugo Boss, part of the collection, and I bought this because I found the deal online. It's definitely not super solid. I don't look at the color. Goes pretty dark. So there's apparently a wine note in here, like red grapes or wine, which it kind of throws me off. I'm not sure why they approved this fragrance. It's so weird. So lots of it's that kind of eau de corde. Lots of Cypriol, which we know he does so well with Promise and Dijon. It's here. This one doesn't act as fruity boozy, but it does have that kind of wine-like note in it. This is much more smokier and more fiery. Doesn't have the brightness that Dijon has, and even further with Promise. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not super exciting. Confident Oud. I shot a whole video of the line and I never did air it, so I better air that video. I don't know why. Sometimes I shoot things when I'm just here thinking about it and then I forget to air it. So I gotta air that video. But I don't have everything from the line, and my favorite is the Musk. Musk is awesome. That one's okay. I think there's a few others that are a little better. But next we're going to the house of Paco Rabanne, or now called Rabanne. It's Phantom. This is also a bottle designed by Pierre Dinan. I was talking about Pierre Dinan earlier with Miles Wambao. Anyway, this is so unlike Invictus, which I despise the smell of, this one's pleasant. It's not like super, oh wow, but I don't hate it like I hate Invictus. It's kind of like this creamy woody base with some aromatics up top. This is created along with Anne Flippo, Juliette Karagozoglu, and Loc Dong. So it's 4 perfumers. Well, I don't know, what is it with Rabanne and Invictus and this doing 4 like perfumers? It's just weird. Again, as I said, I don't hate this one like I hate Invictus. This one's pleasant. That creamy base is really nice. It's so smooth and cozy. It's an aromatic fragrance. There's aromatics here. I think there's some lavender. There might be some clary sage. It's smelling a bit more like clary sage. So that is Paco Rabanne, or Rabanne Phantom from 2021. Then there's Ralph Lauren's Ralph Club, which I gave it such a negative review. Did you guys like this one? I think the Elixir is much better, and I never got the Eau de... Is this the Eau de Parfum? That's an Eau de Parfum, so I guess I never got the Parfum. The Elixir is really good. I did not know this was a Dominique Ropion. I always felt like it was somehow like a bit of an offspring of something like Invictus. Yeah, I don't care for Ralph's Club. Who's a fan? I think it's just, it kind of has similarities a little bit to Y. A little bit darker. It's got a lot, like an aquatic, marine kind of an underlying woody base. I think that's what I don't care for. Yeah. Ralph's Club. I don't want to be part of that club. Do you? All right. Next up, it's YSL's La Nuit de la Homme Bleu Electrique. Who's a fan of this one? Everybody was talking about this for a long time. Everybody. Until I finally found bottles in France and brought some back with me. So apparently this is a co-creation with Anne Flippo, Juliette Caragozoglu, and Fanny Bell. It's basically taking the original into a slight bit more modern direction, giving it a little bit of more of a backbone. You still have that original DNA in there. It's a bit more amped up. I think it's also limited edition and it's probably gone. This is an Eau de Toilette Intense. I like that kind of blue thing happening under here. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Again, as I said earlier, I really love the La Nuit de la Homme DNA, so I really wanted this, and it doesn't disappoint. I much preferred over Ralph's Club. Ralph's Club is so boring, man. I just don't like that fragrance. Okay, up next. Oops. So I'm going to just quickly talk about this. I'm not going to deal with it. This is Vanilla Barca from the house of AMARIGE. So this is, in 2021, all three of these fragrances are spitting images of one another. So we've got the Vanilla Barca, we've got the Vanagloria, and we've got the Baby Cat. So this is actually, a friend had a bottle. They just gifted it to me. It's a tester. I haven't really used it much, but I mean, I smelled it and I've go, yeah, that has similarities. And people were mentioning it and I didn't realize, because I usually am not a big fan of Atars or dabbers, so I kind of skipped it. But since the friend didn't want this, this is how much there is in it. So I dabbed it on once and I do get the similarities. So in 2021, he launched Vanilla Barca. In 2021, also Vanagloria. So my first experience with that Baby Cat DNA was Vanagloria. So it's leathery, incense, vanilla dry, sweet and spicy, because there's pepper, minerally, there's saffron, a little metallic. But it's such a great DNA. I absolutely love that fragrance. And then, at that time, people were saying, well, oh, this Baby Cat. Baby Cat's out. So, Baby Cat was so difficult to get, you know? It was so difficult to get. They never launched it in the States. Why? They were playing tricks on us. Going from Vanagloria to Baby Cat, like my nose is like, yeah, you can get a little bit more pepper here, maybe. A little bit less vanilla. It depends on, I mean, they're very close. Very, very close, all three of them. In fact, they're also very close to number 5 from Rosendo Matu. And then I actually have another fragrance here that's coming up that was launched several years later. That's also kind of similar to Baby Cat and Vanagloria, which I'll let you know about it. But it's a great DNA that has become quite popular. It's interesting also with number 5 from Rosendo Matu. I never thought of it as a similar fragrance until I really actually sat down and smelled it, because I was wearing number 5 a lot in 2019. Towards the end of the year, and then on to 2020, and then I stopped wearing it. And then in 2021, I got my hands on this towards the end of the year and really fell in love with it, until I went and, put grabbed number 5 and smelled it side by side with Vanagloria and Baby Cat, is when I realized there are similarities. But did Dominique copy, or is it accidental? I don't know what the deal was, but there are similarities and they're pretty close, I think. But either way, all of them are great. To me, it's a great DNA. I absolutely love the DNA, and I'll keep recommending it to you guys. The only thing is I don't have the newest version, and it's very close. I smelled it once in passing. I haven't really worn it, and from what I recall, it was very, very close to the original Baby Cat. So I don't need to grab another. Anyway, so those are those fragrances. Let's move on to Juicebox's Good Morning. So there's 2 fragrances, Good Morning and Spring Dance, launched same time, both created by Dominique Ropion for Juicebox. Both of them are inspired by classical music. I believe Vivaldi, I think. Don't get me wrong. I mean, don't quote me on that. It could be inspired by the 4 Seasons. Good Morning is so juicy. It's so fresh. It's so invigorating. And Spring Dance is here. So Good Morning is like ozonic and crisp, like aquatic a little bit. Spring Dance to me does remind me a little bit of the fragrance Cologne Indelible. If you guys are familiar with that from Frederick Malle, this one has similarities to it. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous, fresh orange blossom, kind of citrus florals, citruses, juicy greenness, all combined together. So it also gives me that kind of slight camphor touch that is present in Carnal Flower. I never thought of it that way. Oh boy. Have you guys tried Spring Dance? These are both really great, but they're freshies, so they're not the most exciting. Up next, it's another juice box called Visionary Eye. This one's a David Bowie inspired fragrance. Super powdery and also anise, licorice. I always am happy to see anise, licorice in fragrances. It adds this layer of soft depth to fragrances, slightly boozy, a little green, spicy. But iris is a favorite note of mine, so this is quite gorgeous. It's a bit more complex, but still very airy and ethereal. I envision air-conditioned theater with, fog in the, not fog, but like smoke that is generated inside. So it's like airy and lifting up in the air, kind of. All right, next we're going to the House of Rain de Saba. It's called Aksum. I really enjoy this one. My favorite still is the one created by Dominique's co-perfumer and Filippo, called Rain Makeda. This is a floral, fresh, dewy, watery kind of thing. Kind of musky and powdery. It's kind of humid as well. Like this is like morning in a humid environment with a lot of like lush florals and greens bloomed. It's nice, but not my favorite from the line. There's a few others that I really enjoy, but Aksum is really great if you like that kind of green, floral, fresh, humid. But this next one, I really, really love that he created. We actually featured this in the Scent Club kit. I was so happy to have had this. This is Malamata from Rousse and Rousse. It's an award winner in France also. If you like green stems, green floral notes, green galbanum, kind of tomato leafy stems, you gotta get your nose on this one. It's so good. Oh, I love it. It kind of is like an offspring of Synthetic Nature from Frederic Malle. Again, that's the co-creator of Dominique, perfumer at the IFF and Flippo. But whereas that one is a bit more humid, this is more fresh. It also gives me pea vines. If you've ever had pea vines, they were trendy for a while in the mid 2000s. I would see them in dishes. They would garnish plates with them. And the flavor, if you associate flavor with smell, you kind of get that here. It smells like pea vines, but kind of hand in hand with tomato leaves and those kind of green ingredients and plants that grow in the garden. It's so good. This is absolutely amazing. But you've got to be into green fragrances because it's super green. So that's Malamata by Rousse and Rousse. Then we're going back to the house of Al Jazeera. This is Jockey. So this one is actually a full bottle. Not one of my favorites from the house again, but because for me, patchouli is also is the favorite of mine. Patchouli is Olivier Cresp doing Angel like it used to be. But in that fragrance, there's a little bit of the idea of L'Instant de Guerlain pour Homme au Extrême in it as well. But it's so sexy. Let's see what the Jockey's all about. Given the fact that it's kind of white, is it another white floral? This is, to me, very Middle Eastern, like spices, saffron-y, rose, actually. I'm getting like rose and saffron with this one more. Reminds me of something like a Mancera fragrance with rose and saffron going into that Middle Eastern direction. There might be some patchouli in here as well. It doesn't smell like Portrait of a Lady, if that's what you're thinking, maybe because he did Portrait of a Lady. It smells more like something Mancera Montal would do or something in that line. Very rosy, very spicy with the saffron. I'm not sure how that relates to Jockey, and the bottle is so white. It's kind of a cool looking bottle, don't you think? You guys familiar with this house? If you ever make it to Paris and go to the Champs-Elysees, go to their store and get your nose on patchouli. It's so good. Yeah, I'm a patchouli lover. All right, next we're going to the house of Astier de Villatte. This is also something that you might not be able to get. You might have to probably get it in Paris and go to their store too because they are known for their plateware. And oh man, but Le Nuit is so raw. Iris and violet. Well, I think it's iris, but I do get violet here. But in the most raw form and a bit vintage. Yeah, oh man, this is good. So good. So they have some of the most amazing, is it porcelain? I don't think it's porcelain. All these like ornamental dishes and plateware, and very, very expensive. In fact, I brought something back a couple years ago, and it's more like a little container, this glass white container, and you can you can put like cards in it or something. It's just beautiful. Like if you ever need a little thing to put scent strips in it, they have little cups and things like that. And they have a really great collection of perfumes. And this is awesome. Awesome stuff. Like super raw. Like the iris in here is like in its raw green form, vegetal form. Very powdery, but also ambery. And also very violet forward. Le Nuit from AMARIGE. I highly recommend it. Take a trip to Paris. If you do, go to their store. It's on the Rue Saint-Honoré. And it's Perfume Street, basically. The Rue Saint-Honoré I've been going to since 2006. And it is just becoming perfume capital. Like, all the perfume shops are there. All, like, different brands. And it wasn't like that before. It was never like that before. Anyway, let's go to the next fragrance. We're going to the house of Nichane. It's Papy Lafico. When I first smelled this one, I felt like it was very mass market for Nichane. It has grown on me. Oops, sorry. It has grown on me, I have to say. It's super spicy. Woods, lots of woods. Maybe slight ambery sweetness. Yeah, it definitely is smelling much better than it used to be. I did a video on some Nichane fragrances recently. Some folks, I left this one off, and a lot of you were saying, how come you left this one off? I think I like a certain kind of fragrance from the house. Again, this is not bad, but to me, it smelled very mass market for a niche house. But now looking back at it, I like the quality. But if I was to rank Nichane, I wouldn't put this high. If I was to rank Dominique Ropion, I wouldn't put this high. That's just me. But this next one, I would really put it high. It's definitely, totally a Dominique Ropion masterpiece. This is Carine by Carine Roitfeld. So on my last trip to Paris, I was at the Printemps boutique, the first floor upstairs perfume store. I bumped into somebody from the community, and I had dismissed the last release from Carine in the kind of maroon colored bottle. And when I spoke to this person in the community, she pointed out certain notes, and now I have a different view of that fragrance, and one that I really love. So I need to get the last release from this house, also created by Dominique Ropion, but Carine by Carine Roitfeld. If you're ever into white flowers with patchouli, this is so super sexy. In fact, I find this to be more, well, wait. For the first time today, I'm getting a little bit of the DNA of Alien. But Alien doesn't have patchouli, at least not highlighted. This Carine is so super sexy. It's also a great lingering power. It's gardenia and jasmine together. I think that's the reason why I got the Alien connection this time. I like that, the Alien connection. Yeah, but no, it's not identical, but I think the jasmine in here is reminding me of the jasmine he uses in Alien. Very sexy. But the other fragrance, the last one from the house with kind of a similar color to this, I think it's a little purpler. That one is a bit old school. It's once again a floral, but now that I spoke to this woman from the community, like I said, I see that fragrance in a new light. I really appreciate it because I had dismissed it. It was too floral. So I'm going to have to get back to that. But in the meantime, Carine by Carine Roitfeld, if you haven't tried it yet, I really recommend that one. Up next, going to the house of... Oh, we're on the last page, actually. So we are from 2023 to 2025. So this is the last collection of fragrances. We've got quite a few here. We're starting off with, in 2023, Ralph Lauren's Ralph's Club Elixir. Much better than the original. Much, much better than the original. The original was such a dud for me, such a dud. I really, really gave it a bad review. In fact, I might have been a bit too mean. I didn't even know it was Dominique Ropion, but I mean, I didn't care for it. This one, actually, I appreciate. Once again, it's not like the best fragrance, but they gave it some life. It's like ambery, it's thick and dense and spicy, it's a bit sweet, but they've removed that kind of cheap smelling DNA of the original and gave it, you know, some strength to it, some excitement to it. I appreciate its strength for a designer. Again, it's not my all-time favorite designer fragrance, but it also comes in a bit more of a classy bottle. But Ralph's Club Elixir. Now, there's a new one that launched in the silver bottle. Ralph's Club New York. Is that what it's called? I'm forgetting the name. That's not created by Dominique Ropion. I think it's also a different firm. It's not IFF. I think it's gone to Givaudan. I like that one. But I just didn't care for the original Ralph's Club. Are you a fan of Ralph's Club Elixir, or do you prefer the original more? Let me know. Here's Ralph's Club Elixir. Up next, BDK Vanille Leather. Ooh, I love this. This is so good. And I mean, it's funny. I did a BDK deep dive video a month or so ago. In that video, I said, which fragrance is going to get the extract treatment? And I was right. I said, it's going to have to be Velvet Tonka. And sure enough, BDK is launching Velvet Tonka. And I can't wait to get my nose on it. That's one of my favorites from the house. But I think the next one should be Vanille Leather, but I doubt this is a popular fragrance. And I feel like the brand would launch extracts of their more popular fragrances. I really, really love this one. It's a kind of a vintage old school leather with vanilla. It's super delicious. It's just, I think, a bit weak. But maybe that's the way this fragrance is supposed to be enjoyed. I could only see how it could be with an extract treatment, more intense. But what I like about this one is it's like a violety leather, which is giving me that old school vibe, laced with the syrupy but powdery dry vanilla. It's so good, so good. It's got a very vintage vibe. To me, it's also a bit more suede-like, suede leather. I really love the way this smells. It's very cozy. You guys familiar with it? I think the color of the juice has also gotten quite dark, but I can only hope that they create an extract of this. I doubt it, but I'm looking forward to trying the latest BDK Velvet Tonka extract. I don't know when it'll come to the States. The bottle is also looking quite gorgeous, but in the meantime, I would enjoy Vanille Leather. It's really, really great. Great job. When you smell it, you can smell a little bit of other fragrances as well. Like, let me tell you what. Where did I grab this one from? Here. The powdery effect in there. I think there's iris for sure. Might come off a little bit of the iris in not the next fragrance, but the one after that. Let me tell you which one. So this next one is Rabanne's Phantom Parfum, with created with Anne Flippo and Juliette Caragozo-Glou. Again, as I said, I'm not a big fan of a lot of Paco Rabanne fragrances, especially Invictus. I can't stand it. This actually is a pretty decent collection. And what has happened here with the Parfum, that kind of creamy, cozy base notes, has been given the boost up. Like it's a lot more intense, and it's a lot more cushy, kind of more doughy. Like just imagine dough rising. But there's aromatics and spices in here for sure. I can totally get behind this fragrance, and I just could not stand Invictus. Invictus, I smelled so much as well. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I also was turned off by it. Not all of the Invictus fragrances. The first one was pretty nauseating, actually. Up next, going to the House of NOIR. It's Yes, I Can. Yes, you can. So we featured these in our mystery boxes. We had the previous mystery box in the summer, August, I believe it was launched. We had a 6-set discovery set of their summer fragrances. And just a month or so ago, we had the last mystery box, which featured the 9 fragrances in their original lineup. Yes, I Can is giving me the idea of oud, wood, cypriol, boozy, spicy, fruity. What is it reminding me of? A little bit of promise. A little bit of promise in a little bit of a different way. Do you guys get that? Yes, I Can. I wonder where the name comes from. Again, it's not super identical to Promise, but it's giving me the Promise vibes. So that's Yes, I Can from NOIR. Let me know if you're familiar with that. And then we're going back to the house of Givenchy. It's L'Interdit Eau de Parfum Rouge, created with Anne Flippo and Fanny Ball. I would love to find a vintage bottle of L'Interdit, the previous edition. So Givenchy has brought the name back and recreated it with white flowers. Ooh, this one's got a red spiciness. It reminds me like it's like a offspring of, definitely an offspring of Carnal flower. The tuberose in here is so similar to that. But there is a kind of a red berry fruity spiciness in this that's much better than the original that I spoke about a little bit ago. Very modern tuberose, which I can get behind. It's the vintage, and I'm a big fan of vintage. I don't know what's going on with my nose and tuberose that smells old school. But this is, there's a fruitiness here. There's a crispness and a very creamy tuberose. And very, very fresh. Also creamy, milky. Like there's a milky effect, not milky notes, but the creaminess comes off very fluid and milky. Liquidy. That's really good. And then this next one, Lancome's La Vie est Belle L'Extrait from 2023. This is co-created with Anne Flippo. This is also a really solid offering, taking La Vie est Belle to a very powdery but buttery iris direction. Really great work with oud in there. I believe there's oud here. I really love the iris in here. It's a super iris forward. So I think it's oud. You got that like the oud that you're familiar with, that Dominique Ropion is known for. They kind of cypriol papyrus oud accord. There's a light fruitiness, but lots of buttery iris. Super cozy and comforting. I think the oud might be a bit of a turnoff to some folks, but being used to oud, this kind of oud, I think it's pretty decent. I think somebody new, not much experience with oud, might think this has a funk. But that's really great. The butteriness of the iris oris in here is super special. This actually is 100 ml. I did a short video on it. It was selling for around $80 some. I think it's totally worth it. It's an extrait of Parfum, by the way, as you can see right there. All right, up next, Nishane, Hachivat Oud. Yeah, I guess since Dominique has created so many oud fragrances, Nishane would go with him to create a oud take on Hachivat. Are you guys fans? Why has this fragrance, the original Hachivat, is so screechy and metallic and sharp? Why has this oud version become so creamy? The oud is a very wearable oud. It's a nice contrast. It's kind of removed the screechiness of the original fragrance. This is really great. I'm gonna have to try some of that on. I've not really experienced how great this is until tonight. It's strong. That's actually really good. Are you guys a fan? Are you a fan of Hachivat? I wonder how that would be to layer with 100 Silent Ways. 100 Silent Ways? Is that what the fragrance name? You layer Hachivat and the Hachivat with 100 Silent Ways. I wonder how the oud version would layer with that, because that's one of my favorite layering combos, the Hachivat and the 100 Silent Ways fragrance. But now that there's this oud version, I wonder how that would be. It's definitely not as fruity. It's definitely oud wood, but it's not animalic. It's just got the funk that oud accords do. The cypriol is pretty strong. Actually, that's good. It's good. It's not like, oh my god, I want to keep wearing it, but it's quite good. But speaking of oud, going to 2024, Frederic Malle launched Hope. Hope, created by Dominique Ropion, to me, is the reverse of Promise with oud. So basically, the Promise has been stripped down, toned down, and amped up with actual oud. So it's not as fruity as Promise. It's a bit more cypriol forward, but definitely lots of woods. It's very potent, a fragrance, super strong. I think if you want to balance it out, layering it with Promise would work. It would just balance it out, because the other one goes fruitier, obviously, boozier. This one's much more woody. Hope by Frederic Malle. Are you a fan? By the way, if you're a fan of Frederic Malle fragrances, there's definitely a deep dive video on the channel of everything the brand had launched up until what's coming out next month. So go catch that video to prep for the launch of the next fragrance. I think it's called Contre Moi, created by Annick Menardo, and it's an Immortelle focused fragrance. So let's move on to the brand launched by not Frederic Malle, Dominique Ropion, his own brand. And I've got two fragrances here. Aphorisms by Dominique Ropion, Crazy Garden. Honestly, these are some of the heaviest bottles I've ever come across. Cap is extremely heavy. The bottle is extremely heavy and thick. This is my favorite of the line, Crazy Garden. That is heavy. This is super zesty, juicy citruses. A bit kind of a fruitiness. But it's so pulpy. The rind is like amped up heavy. And I think it's perfect in the heat. Humid weather, it's really, really awesome. I think the line is not super hyped, and I don't know who's carrying this line anywhere nearby. And then the second fragrance from the line is Encens Insensé. It's so heavy. These bottles are really, really heavy. So, yeah, very heavy. I have not known Dominique Ropion to have been a perfumer that does incense very much. This is a very minerally, slightly metallic, cold incense. Very resinous, not much sweetness. smoky for sure. Between the two, I really love Crazy Garden, but this incense insensé can be enjoyable in the right moments. What do you guys think of the Aphorisms by Dominique Ropion collection? Add a comment below. Going back to the house of, where is it? Astier de Villat. Wait. I completely skipped one of the fragrances. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to go back in time and talk about d'Orsay's EQ. This is the fragrance that I thought I didn't have, which I had on the list. I went and grabbed it, and I completely forgot about it. That's crazy. This is EQ. So I discovered d'Orsay in Milan after Essence, the very first Essence after COVID in 2022 at the Campo Marzio boutique. Really fell in love with the collection, very French fragrances. Then this launched right after I discovered the brand. This is a kind of a minimalist. In fact, we featured this samples in a mystery box right after it launched. It's very powdery. It's musky. It's a bit minimalistic. Iris is strong, but super classy and elegant powdery fragrance. But I think it's not super potent. It's not an extract like their extracts. This is just like a really powdery take on iris with a little woods, but very musky and powdery, as I said. There's a little bit of a contrast that maybe there's like musky notes. I think there might actually be ambrette in this, but I think it's gorgeous. It's just very personal, the fragrance. So that is EQ. I won't do the butchering of the actual real name. So I completely forgot that. I don't know why. And it's written down too. All right. Then we are going to back to the house of Astier de Villat. This is Ambre Liquide. So this is the second fragrance I have from this house created by Dominique Ropion. I've got 3 or 4 of their fragrances. Again, this is not very easy to find in the States. Although Lucky Scent does sell some of these fragrances. They might even sell Ambre Liquide. This amber is like, almost like a Spice Bazaar amber. It's super spicy, like kind of reminds me a little bit of Diptyque's very first fragrance, Low, but with a lot of amber, like very syrupy kind of fluid amber, but super intense with the spices. Like I feel like there's cinnamon and cloves here, maybe a little bit of cardamom. It's like really amped up, like you're at some kind of a Spice Bazaar and I don't know, there's an amber fragrance there and you're like right next to the spice market because the spices are so super strong. It's giving me like chai tea vibes against the ambery effect. Have you guys tried it? Ambre Liquide? Anybody know the brand? Going back to d'Orsay, Flower Lust. So this launched with Tonka Hysteria and the incense fragrance that Julien Rasquinet created. I went right to the Tonka Hysteria. I loved it. This is a typical Dominique Ropion creation, floral notes. It's called Flower Lust. It's super white floral, lots of white flowers. This is actually also a bit old school white floral. So that's why I didn't appreciate this one that much. It's unlike the NOTRE-DAME. It's unlike the CARNAL flower. It's giving me old school vibes. Are you a fan? Let me know. I do have to say, going back to EQ, I was mentioning how Iris Shot gives me a little bit of the idea of EQ earlier. EQ has a lot of iris, but this is a lot more minimal in comparison to Iris Shot, which is a lot more dense. But somehow the DNA is similar, if that makes sense. Also, with Flower Lust, I think it's a little bit more tropical floral, but also very, very spicy. So it's kind of creamy, but there's definitely a major spice and sweetness to it. Okay, now we're going to L'Interdit once again. Givenchy's L'Interdit. This is L'Absolu. In 2024, it launched with Anne Flippo and Fanny Bell. Fanny Bell. This is the black bottle. So many different flankers, right? Who loves flankers and who hates flankers? Let's see, do I like this one? This one's kind of going back to the original Eau de Toilette. I kind of like the Rouge much better, Eau de Parfum Rouge. This one is just taking the original and making it a little stronger. It's kind of like that fruity tuberose. Why can't I get that? There we go. Yeah, not my favorite. Just giving me the stronger vibe as the original. I do like the Parfum more, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. Which I thought I had here, but I guess I'm going to have to pause again. Yeah, it's okay. Let me know if you're a fan of the L'Interdit Absolu. Add a comment below. Up next, going to the house of Mugler. It's Hypersense. I'm sorry, it's Alien Hypersense. Honestly, L'Interdit Absolu is giving me a little bit of the idea of Alien as well. Not sure why. So I was looking forward to trying Extra Intense, which came out, I guess, fairly recently. I haven't been able to get my hands on it. This to me is a bit transparent. Like, I'm not smelling much of what I remember smelling from the original Alien. It's not as exciting. In fact, for me, as I was mentioning earlier, this Alien Mirage is one of the best flankers of Alien. I absolutely love that. This is not so potent. And what does it, what is it referring to, Hypersense? Let me know. How is Extra Intense, by the way, guys? Add a comment below. I'm looking forward to get my nose on that. I haven't run across it anywhere. I'd like to find it. All right, we are going to the House of Prode next with Bergamot and Oud. You guys familiar with Prode? It's not Oud and Bergamot like Joe Malone. This is Bergamot and Oud. This is once again Dominique's usage of the Cypriol that gives you that kind of barrel aging. It also kind of very distantly reminds me a little bit of Promise, but more of a citrusy take on something like that, less fruity. But I think it's the Cypriol that he uses that kind of gives me the idea of that Promise. But in this case, it's called Oud, and I don't think he's using any real oud. It's the Cypriol that's playing or acting like oud. That is Bergamot and Oud from Prode. Then we've got saffron and vanilla. And this is the one that gives me the idea of Baby Cat, Vanagloria, Vanilla Barca. On me, this stuff lasts so long. And I also overspray, but it's also, the dry down seems sweeter than Baby Cat and Vanagloria. But very similar and very close. But I just love that DNA. Saffron and Vanilla by Prode. And then finally, we've got Gold Flower. Dominique does really well with flowers, as we've discussed in this video. Unfortunately, this is not one of my favorite fragrances. This is also very vintage. It's almost like a fusion of tuberose and ylang ylang. This is very old school to me. Who's gotten their nose on this line? It's a Thai brand. Let me know. Add a comment below. Up next, we've got Nishane's Tuberosa X. So it's a redo of Tuberosa from Nishane. And I only have this tiny little bottle. Oh yeah, this one is super candied and very vintage tuberose. Although I like this a little bit more than the original. It seems a bit greener, but it's got a fracas, like a total fracas vibe. It's okay, not my favorite. Up next, Essential Parfums Velvet Iris. This was in our last mystery box, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And also, we have, as I was mentioning, we have some, what do you call it? The Essential Parfums boxes, the surprise boxes with the 2-for-1 deals. If you guys are looking for some deals on Essential Parfums fragrances. So going back to Velvet Iris. Unfortunately, I have to be honest, this is not aptly titled or named. I don't get a velvet experience with this. I think if it was smoothed out with some sweetness, it would be a bit more velvety. This is super green and vegetal to me. That's not to say it's a bad fragrance. I just don't get the velvety experience. Because it's green, I wouldn't consider green like velvety. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe you guys get velvet from this. What do you guys think? So I shot a video with the founder of Essential Parfums, and she specifically said she doesn't like sweet fragrances. Although she has a fragrance called Divine Vanille. She could have given this a little bit of sweetness, but the greenness doesn't make it velvety for me. I don't know. That's my thoughts. It's not a bad fragrance, but it's not also like one of my all-time favorite iris fragrances. From this house, the patchouli and the vanilla are my top, followed by a few others, which I don't remember. Up next, going to the house of Headspace with Rose. I have a video on Headspace on the channel. Go catch that. This, I thought that was Dominique's take on something like Rose and Queer from Frederic Malle, created by Jean-Claude Elena. This came off very vegetal to me. I think there's a menthol greenness about it, and I feel like the geranium in here causes that. So it's almost like smelling geranium and getting rose from it, because you can do that. Bring out the rosiness from the geranium, or bring out the mintiness from the geranium. There's a slight mintiness here. Yes, it's green. Also, there's definitely rose, lots of rose. It's called rose, obviously. But it's the kind of green menthol kind of rose. Very kind of like aromatic and vegetal. Not a super strong, like a fragrance for me, but I think it's just tastes are different. That's Rose from Headspace. Then we've got Tom Ford. Yeah, we've got a Tom Ford here. It's Oud Voyager, created with Carlos Benayem and Pascal Goran. This is, I think this is pretty solid. Still not a wow. And it's kind of rosy, but they're doing the rosiness with peony. The oud is like the oud that I'm familiar with, the kind of Cipriali kind of oud. It's an accord. It's super spicy. It's pleasant. It's not like a wow wow, but it's decent. It's kind of like the opposite of Oud Wood. I think Oud Wood will always be very popular for the brand, but I guess Tom Ford's looking for more of an audience with oud fragrances. What are your thoughts on Oud Voyager? Let me know. Add a comment below. All right, we've got 3 more fragrances left, and then we'll be done. Starting with the last fragrance in the Givenchy L'Entre-Deux collection. This is the Le Parfum, and the Le Parfum is quite good. For me, it's a really dense, intense take on the original, but less fruits, more creamy white floral notes. The tuberose is just very, very thick and dense. I think out of all of them, my favorite is the Rouge, followed by the Parfum. And then the other 2 are probably tied. But the fact that it's a Parfum concentration, super highly concentrated, you can actually really feel the texture of the creaminess of the flowers in here. So that is L'Entre-Deux Givenchy Parfum. Beautiful bottle too. All right, we're going to a house called Pran Parfum. Pran. Notre-Dame de Paris. Look at that in the back. Looks like the Notre-Dame. I actually got to go to the Notre-Dame for the first time. I've traveled to France for like 20 years, and I just went to, I think it was earlier this year. Beautiful. I mean, I've gone near it, outside of it, but obviously it burned and it was closed for a long time, and finally got to go. This is so good, I have to say. Honestly, this is really yummy. It's almost like a gourmand with smoke. Like fire crackling woods and something creamy, sweet, vanillic, but not over to top sugary. It's so yum. It's so yum. It's delicious. But you got to be into... There's a sweet custardy effect happening, but just keep in mind, it's contrasted with something smoky burned, almost ashy. Like maybe you're caramelizing custard. I don't know, something like that. But yum. It's so yum. It's also not super sugary sweet, which is the kind of gourmands I really enjoy. Let me know if you're a fan. And look at that photo on the back. Ending the list with Prode's Pride. We've gone through quite a few fragrances here today, guys. Did we make a 3-hour video? I can't recall how long is this. Yeah, I think we made 3 hours. Now that I look at the time. Unfortunately, we're ending on not such a high note because the Pran Parfum is super awesome. This is a bit underwhelming. It's kind of a dark, smoky, amber woods. Spices, lots of spices. Not my favorite fragrance, unfortunately. But this Parfum, Notre-Dame de Paris. Super awesome. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this house. That is delicious. Again, it's not a super gourmand. It's creamy custardy, almost kind of smoky. Maybe it's giving me the idea of chestnuts, marron glacé, like chestnuts, some roasted chestnuts chopped up with some, you know, vanillic something mixed together. That's delicious. I'm gonna end on that note. End on a delicious note. Check that one out, Parfum, Notre-Dame de Paris. And that's the last fragrance from Dominique Ropion. I've gone through quite a few fragrances here. I'm a little tired. It's at the end of the day, very late, and I was happy to be able to shoot this video for you guys. So what are your thoughts on these fragrances from Dominique Ropion? Add a comment below. Let me know what's missing. Obviously, he's done a lot more fragrances than what I have here. Yeah, let me know what's missing. What are your thoughts on the fragrances here? What are your thoughts on the missing fragrances? What deep dives do you want to see next? Which perfumer, which note, which genre of fragrances, or any other ideas you have? Add a comment or send an email to the email address in the info box. Everything should be tagged as much as I can tag for you guys to buy. If you're in the market for these, check them out. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, guys, please list below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Click the bell icon. There'll be a lot more deep dives coming up. It does take a long time to do these. Like, it's all real-time shooting. So if this video is 3.5 hours long, that's how long it takes me to shoot. Plus a couple of hours to prepare all the notes. I write notes down. My printer is also screwed up. It's just getting weird. I gotta change my printer. But yeah, it takes a long time to do this planning and the shooting. So this video it's like 3.5 hours of shooting if it's 3.5 hours. About 2 hours of planning, and then about an hour and a half to 2 hours of prepping to go live. So it takes a long time to do these. But I appreciate you tuning in. And let me know if you are a fan of this perfumer and why do you like his creations? What do you think is his worst fragrance? What do you think is his best fragrance? And also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube Shorts channel. Hopefully soon I'll start posting content there. And I've got that channel linked in the info box. See you guys later. Bye-bye.